Hey, T-Sippers. Hey, T-Sippers. Hey, T-Sippers. What it do? What it do? Ooh. I heard it went down today. I heard it went down today. Where am I gonna start? They got a little freaky today in court. Do you wanna get funky with me? Do you wanna get funky? Yeah. Hi Nola. Do you wanna get funky with me? I heard it got a little raunchy. Yep. I heard it got a little raunchy. Yep. They were showing videos. What they say? All up in the video. Ooh, they showed the video. Yesterday we saw one of the XXX workers talking and running his mouth, stroking his ego. You know, and baby, today, I mean, it just was not a good day for old Diddy. Because he was showing up all up in the video. Ooh, Lord, where am I going to start? Where am I going to start today? Come on in. Come on in. It's about time to spin the bean. Going around in a circle. Ooh. There was a lot going on. There's a lot. I'm going to start. I think I'm going to start here. I think I'm going to. What is this? Let's start here. Yeah, I think I'm going to start here. Am I going to do it this way? We can do it like this, or we can do it like that. Do it like this, or do it like that. Do it like this, do it like that. Y'all ready? I ain't waiting, cause baby, when I be doing that late night, late in the midnight hour stuff, baby, ooh, I be falling asleep. Shout out to Stop Playing. She came through. Baby, week 6 testimony. I don't know how good it's gonna be. Like I know my sister's gonna give it to us, but let's go this way. Baby.
Hi, I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us tonight. We've learned that the defense for Sean Diddy Combs will put on a case after the prosecution rests later this week. The defense signaling plans to call as many as 3 witnesses, possibly more. But the biggest question remains,
he out of here.
Will the hip-hop mogul take the stand in his own defense? Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges in his sex trafficking
I don't
and
think he can resist.
conspiracy trial. This week, the government's last remaining witnesses are testifying. Today, the jury saw messages from Combs's employees about Freakoffs and an alleged drug deal. The jury also seeing text messages and emails pulled from one of Combs's devices showing travel arrangements for a male escort. This device likely seized in one of the 2 FBI raids on his home last year.
That evidence.
Federal prosecutors showing the messages as they try to prove one of the charges, transportation to engage in prostitution. Also today, the judge standing firm on his decision to dismiss a juror Friday. A new juror is now in place, the male alternate, a 57-year-old architect active in Boy Scouts who now makes the jury slightly older, whiter, and less urban. How could that impact the case? We'll talk to a jury
and
consultant.
possibly
First,
another
ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron
juror.
Kaczorski. Aaron's been in the courtroom throughout this trial. He joins us live now outside the courthouse here in Manhattan. And Aaron, let's start with the jury. Bring us up to speed here. Why was one of the jurors replaced?
Lack of candor, according to Judge Arun Subramanian, Eva. He said that the juror had given inconsistent answers when asked a basic question, where do you live? And he gave these answers at the Bronx, New Jersey, and couldn't quite reconcile the two. And the judge said it raised some serious concerns in his mind, not only about the juror's candor, but whether he was making a deliberate attempt to get himself onto the jury. So this is why we have alternates
to get Diddy out.
These kinds of questions, and so he decided to remove the juror.
He played it too
from
close.
From the panel and replace him with
Ran
that
his
alternate
mouth.
who will now be in the room to deliberate once the trial reaches that phase.
Yeah, you mentioned that alternate juror who's now going to go to the deliberation room. Did the defense raise any concerns there?
That it's going to make the jury less diverse. This was a 41-year-old black man who said he was from the Bronx. The replacement is a 57-year-old architect with a master's in mechanical engineering who lives in the burbs up in Westchester County, north of New York City. And so it does slightly alter the makeup, but the judge said he wasn't concerned with this particular jury about it being diverse because there are already a number of other individuals of color who will be deliberating Sean Combs' fate.
The prosecution is expected to rest its case soon. What happened on the witness stand today?
The jury, for the first time, saw videos of freak-offs.
Freak-offs.
Headphones, and they kept their gaze
They saw the
at
freaky
their
stuff.
monitors. Now, the monitors in the courtroom were shut off, so we couldn't see the excerpts depicting Cassie Ventura with male excerpts. But as the clips were playing, we could hear music and faint moaning sounds coming through the headphones of some of the attorneys and the jurors.
So did they drop the other juror?
Now to witness what's at the heart of the case, and it paired with travel records, hotel receipts, credit card bills that showed Sean Combs and his business paid for flights, paid for the hotel rooms where the freak-offs occurred. And that helps prosecutors perhaps prove, Eva, one of the charges against Sean Combs, transportation for the purposes of prostitution.
And I know the witnesses that were called to the stand today, they were being called summary witnesses. For our audience watching, just to clarify for them, what exactly is a summary witness?
So they work for the prosecutors. One was a paralegal, another was one of the investigators, and their whole job is to help authenticate different exhibits that prosecutors have organized into different charts. The jury has seen so many exhibits during the course of the 6 weeks of evidence, more than 500 by our count. And so some of these summary witnesses just put in a manageable form. For example, one of the summary charts involves all the freak-offs from 2009 all the way to 2024 when Jane said she last had one in August of 2024. So the jury was able to get a visual representation. Who was involved? Where did it occur? If there was travel involved, how was it paid for? And federal prosecutors hopes that can help the jury focus when it comes to deliberations. And it also gives them an opportunity to introduce exhibits like travel records or text messages from witnesses who did not testify.
The jury today also got to see not just the video that you mentioned, but other text messages today. What was in those text messages?
They were we're talking about some of the events, and the text messages are key because they're from, say, Christina Combs' one-time chief of staff. She is not testifying here at trial, but she's been talked about a lot, and her messages, you kind of get the other side of conversations that witnesses have talked about. So when Mia, for example, one of Combs' former assistants, reached out to Christina Coram, she said that, Christina
they really liked
worry
him
about certain things, and the jury got to see Coram's actual response, even though she wasn't actually testifying. And this is, I think, the prosecutor's way of trying to give jurors a fuller picture about the alleged sex trafficking, the racketeering, and the transportation to engage in prostitution.
Aaron Kotursky, our chief investigative correspondent, thank you so much for being with us again today. And let's dig in more to today's testimony. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, you were also in court today. What stood out to you?
So I think in the morning when we talk about these summary witnesses, the first thing that stood out to me were just the text messages, some of the correspondence about booking flights, booking hotels, and I think that's where the governor was really trying to show this interstate aspect of the case, transportation, engaging prostitution, as well as sex trafficking. But of course, in the afternoon, when all the jurors donned those headphones, looked at the screens, and for the first time actually watched a freak-off that came from Cassie's device. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think a freak-off video is probably worth 1,000,000, and they're very focused on that as well.
The two summary witnesses, you called them summary witnesses. We had Aaron explain to us what a summary witness is. What was their role supposed to be today?
So let me give you the legal definition. Whenever you have a case that has voluminous amounts of information, don't forget there are several terabytes of discovery in this case. A summary witness is often an individual who can create charts, graphs, or visual aids to help the jury understand all of that information. And for most of what we saw here were the various text messages and information both from Christina Combs' cell phone as well as Sean Combs' cell phone that showed about the various text messages and logs when it comes to traveling and whatnot. Two different individuals. You had a paralegal as well as SDNY special agent of 10 years. Now, typically, summary witnesses are paralegals. I think in the next block when Bernardo comes here, I'm going to save my argument for then. I think it's very interesting that I had a special agent here for this role.
Brendan Paul, can we talk about him? He's expected to take the stand this week for the prosecution.
As well as sex trafficking. But of course, in the afternoon, when all the jurors donned those headphones, looked at the screens, and for the first...
Reached out to Christina Coram. She said that, Christina Coram told her not to worry about certain things, and the jury got to see Coram's actual response, even though she wasn't actually testifying. And this is, I think, the prosecutor's way of trying to give jurors a fuller picture about the alleged sex trafficking, the racketeering, and the transportation to engage in prostitution.
Aaron Kotursky, our chief investigative correspondent, thank you so much for being with us again today. And let's dig in more to today's testimony. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, you were also in court today. What stood out to you?
So I think in the morning when we talk about these summary witnesses, the first thing that stood out to me were just the text messages, some of the correspondence about booking flights, booking hotels, and I think that's where the governor was really trying to show this interstate aspect of the case, transportation, engaging prostitution, as well as sex trafficking. But of course, in the afternoon, when all the jurors donned those headphones, looked at the screens, and for the first time actually watched a freak-off that came from Cassie's device. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think a freak-off video is probably worth 1,000,000, and they're very focused on that as well.
The two summary witnesses, you called them summary witnesses. We had Aaron explain to us what a summary witness is. What was their role supposed to be today?
So let me give you the legal definition. Whenever you have a case that has voluminous amounts of information, don't forget there are several terabytes of discovery in this case. A summary witness is often an individual who can create charts, graphs, or visual aids to help the jury understand all of that information. And for most of what we saw here were the various text messages and information both from Christina Combs' cell phone as well as Sean Combs' cell phone that showed about the various text messages and logs when it comes to traveling and whatnot. Two different individuals. You had a paralegal as well as SDNY special agent of 10 years. Now, typically, summary witnesses are paralegals. I think in the next block when Bernardo comes here, I'm going to save my argument for then. I think it's very interesting that I had a special agent here for this role.
Brendan Paul, can we talk about him? He's expected to take the stand this week for the prosecution. What do we know about him?
Former Syracuse basketball player, former assistant to Sean Combs as well. Don't forget, if you go back in the past with Saludo, he was arrested, actually this is incorrect, in March 2024, back in Miami with drug possession of marijuana and cocaine, got a plea deal, no indictment, and then all charges were dismissed. Now, I think the expectation here is that they're going to try to connect it to the racketeering definition as it applies to Sean Combs. We've heard of Brendan Paul a number of times when it comes to the conversations of providing drugs for Sean Combs or people associated with him. Don't forget, one of the predicate acts in the RICO is drug distribution. They just need 2 or more of those predicate acts to try to make out the RICO. Then they're trying to prove it here.
Okay, we are hearing now that some of, at least the names of some of the defense witnesses, because they will start their case soon. What do we know about them?
Yeah, so we have about 3 witnesses the defense said that they're going to put on to begin with, beginning on Friday, they expect. Vasquez Dunlap is one that they mentioned, and that name came really easy to recognize because that is the vice president of Bad Boy Entertainment. Don't forget, this is a RICO conspiracy. I would assume they're going to have something to say about this not being a criminal enterprise, explaining away many of the arguments that the government has put forward. We also know they're going to have a summary witness as well. And so those are just the first few witnesses that perhaps will continue on to the following week. And I think we're going to expect summation sometime around next week. Don't forget that everyone wants this case to end before July 4th.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you so much. We'll have more with you in just a bit. Still ahead, should the hip-hop mogul take the stand in his own defense? We'll get perspective from both sides. Plus the jury shakeup, despite the defense expressing concerns, the potential impact of a new juror stepping in. Stay with us.
I don't think he can resist.
Welcome back. Thanks for streaming with us. As the prosecution gets ready to wrap up its case this week, let's take a look at the legal strategies we saw playing out in court. Brian Buckmeyer is here as the defense. Bernardo Villalona analyzing the prosecution. Bernardo, let's start with you. We saw that agent today going through some of the things they found on Combs's devices. What was the point of all this?
So remember doing opening statements, doing the defense opening statement that they said, you will not find any evidence that there was a criminal enterprise here. Here's the prosecution ramming it down the defense throat in terms of the text messages, in terms of Christina Quorum being well aware of these freak-offs actually happening. Because before doing cross-examination, it was like, well, how will these employees know that Sean Combs was actually engaging in a freak-off inside of the hotel room? Well, here you have Christina Quorum asking at one point, well, how long do you think it's going to last? Well, probably until tomorrow night, talking about one of the escorts that they saw in the lobby that the personal assistant saw. So you also had confirmation in terms of Sean Combs' enterprise paying for these flights, paying for these hotels, having drugs being transported, dealing with transportation just in general of some of these escorts being flown in. So you have the transportation to engage in prostitution. And even at one point, they were able to point out a text message where they were asking about drugs, and Sean Combs was like, come on, be smart. Like, why are we texting about this, pretty much?
I mean, I guess you can make that stretch. Christina Quorum is not saying how long is Freakoff going to last. No, she's asking how long are these entertainers going to be there. It could very well be that Sean Combs has people taking off their clothes and dancing, and that's what Christina Quorum knows it to be. That doesn't mean it's a Freakoff. It can very well be people doing finger puppets. Like, Christina Quorum isn't saying, I'm facilitating a freak-off, this is what I'm doing. And so if you want to make that stretch, great, but there are reasonable doubt built into the enterprise that exists here. Sean Combs is a businessman of multiple businesses, and people are going to set up hotels. People are going to set up hotels for him, people are going to clean up things for him, people are going to do things for him. They also have people on the stand who already said, I don't do this for my job. I do this because I like him and I want to advance my career. That's not an enterprise. That's people working for you.
Let's not forget the one question that the defense walked right into, having to deal with Dante, which was the personal assistant, when he was asked, did you ever engage in any criminal acts on behalf of Sean Combs? And his answer was yes. Technically, the prosecution can just run with that one-liner throughout their whole closing arguments to meet the criminal enterprise part and meet also that they were engaging in criminal acts on behalf of Sean Combs.
I think if you read it from a transcript, I think you're absolutely right. I think you can make that case. But if you're actually sitting in the courtroom, you see that sass that he's giving Xavier Johnson, and you know he's kind of talking under his breath, I think you could take that as a facetious statement of trying to take a dig at a defense attorney for asking a question and not an actual truth. I think there's a way to work around that.
The second witness that took the stand today,
2024.
Brian, you took issue with this witness.
So, I mean, and Bernardo will know this far better than I, because she's a former prosecutor. And typically, in my experience, a summary witness is a paralegal, an intern, a person who say, you know what, just take this document, make a chart, you're going to be a part of a big case. But instead, they got a 10-year vet who was also an officer. And they were going a little bit further than just what the original summary witness was saying, here are some documents, I uploaded them, they're true and accurate, here's some other. They were trying to draw an inference that because there are text messages, because a hotel was booked, because a flight was booked, then they all must have met at one location, and they don't know that. And I think they did that purposely with a person who was law enforcement to try to garner credibility from that assumption. The defense made the objection, then the judge made a proper ruling. In the afternoon, that was dispelled, but that reeks of desperation for me, that they need someone to make that assumption to tie it all together for them because they don't have that.
Is the prosecution desperate?
I think the prosecution just took out the issue of having to deal with credibility when you're talking about this one witness, because to hear that this is a special agent and not just a paralegal, and a special agent you would think does investigation, conducts investigation, looks at evidence, makes determinations based on their investigation. So by putting that one witness up there, it gave credibility to the entire investigation and gave credibility as well as validity to the summary charts that were presented. And also remember, this is the same special agent that actually had the Freakoff videos that were played for the jury, that the jury actually got to watch. So tying it all together.
I would say it's manufactured credibility, because you could have given that video to anyone to put into a chart.
You're right.
Why do you need a special agent to do it?
I have to ask you, because we're getting to that point in this trial, Brian, if you are Combs's lawyer, are you advising him to take the stand?
As a defense attorney, I prep all of my clients to testify. I run them through the gambit. Sometimes I might even bring Bernardo to cross-examine that person, but I would not tell him to get near that witness stand with a 10-foot pole. This is not a person that I think should, one, testify. This is not a case where I think the defendant should testify. I don't think this is a case where you want to put the credibility of Sean Combs up against the credibility of anyone else. You want to point the finger at the government and say, you can't prove this case. Focus on their flaws. Don't look at my client. He's exercising his constitutional right.
As a prosecution, you want a witness like Sean Combs to actually testify, because it also changes the deliberation process in the sense that the jury is no longer focusing, did the prosecution prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt? Now they're turning their deliberations to, let's focus on, do we believe what Sean Combs has said on this stand? So of course, also remember, there were a lot of evidentiary rulings that didn't go in the prosecution's favor because they were missing a link here or there. But if the defendant were to testify, then guess what? You're my missing link, and I can confront you with what I wasn't able to get into evidence by him testifying.
There are a lot of text messages that we haven't seen, but I bet exist, where Sean Combs is one of the parties and Christina Coram is another, D-Rock is another, someone else. And they can't get those text messages in because they don't have those witnesses. But if Sean Combs takes a stand, as to Bernardo's
Ding,
point,
ding, ding, let's go.
those come in. So it's not just about the witness, it's also about the evidence that the government now gets to put in if he takes a stand. I don't want those in, and I think that's the best advice you give to Sean Combs. It's not about you, it's about what they'll do to you.
The dismissal of this juror, does that pose a problem for the defense?
I don't think it poses a problem. I think if anything, as any defense attorney, any government or prosecutor, you look at the jury as you get information coming in and you see the head nods, you see the body language, you see how they lean towards you. I think the way that the defense fought to keep this person in, they must have felt that there was some sort of body language that suggested that they had this juror, and they're also probably looking at juror 13 and saying, I don't know if I want to dance with the devil that I don't know. I want to dance with the devil that I do know. I don't think it goes beyond race or whatever it may be. It's just they might have felt more comfortable with that individual rather than the next juror. But we saw that person in the jury stand now. He seems to be paying attention in some aspects, kind of drifting in others, but we'll see.
All right. Thank you both for being here with us, as always. Coming up, a jury expert on the new replacement juror who will now help decide the fate of Sean Diddy Combs. Also, the mental exhaustion jurors could be dealing with after more than a month of hearing from witness after witness. Plus, why Bad Boy Records is trending online today after the latest day in court. Stay with us.
I know he is.
Welcome back. As the prosecution prepares prepares to rest the big question, what does the jury think of what they've heard so far? We are now in week 6 of testimony in this trial. On Friday, the judge dismissing juror number 6 over questions about where he lives. The defense pushing back on that decision, but the judge today saying he wasn't going to change his mind. Quote, there's nothing the juror could say at this point to put the genie back in the bottle. Now joining the jury, the first alternate. He is 57 years old from just outside New York City.
Hey,
I'm joined by jury consultant Claudia Colon for more. And Claudia, first, if you could just explain to us what happens when a juror is dismissed.
Yeah, it's not completely, uncalled for in a trial like this one that is so high profile. You're dealing with a celebrity. Something, is always going to come up, maybe. We saw it come up here. The juror, as you just said, wasn't being completely honest with the court, and any semblance, anything that could give the optics of people potentially being biased or having ulterior motives, immediate dismissal. What happens now? Somebody steps in, as you said. There's a juror from outside of New York who's an older gentleman who's going to step in and take his position. These alternate jurors, they've been watching the whole trial. So it's as if they're jurors, they're just not in the jury box. They're kind of like the understudies, if you will, who come in when stuff like this happens.
And the defense made a really big deal about losing that juror because they said it changed the makeup of the jury. What might that tell us?
Well, they also made insinuations that the prosecution wanted this juror out because it was a black male who was older, who, by their analysis or by the demographics of this person, they assumed that the defense probably saw them as favorable, or they knew themselves that it's probably favorable for the defense. And so that's why the defense is raising alarm, saying, this wasn't enough to dismiss this juror. Yes, he might have been not totally consistent about where he lived, but didn't rise to the level of, creating an issue about having ulterior motives or being a stealth juror. That's kind of why there was that tension. But I will say, my experience as seeing juries all over the country and all these different types of trials, it's the juror that's replacing him is not a total loss. Older males tend to be better in these types of cases where you're dealing with the issue of consent, just because, the whole notion of psychological manipulation is a more novel notion, it's not as traditional as these older gentlemen tend to think.
I have to talk to you about just the sheer volume of hours they've been sitting, this jury, in this court. 6 weeks of testimony, hour after hour of witnesses. Are they exhausted?
Yeah, it's a long trial, and they still have a ways to go. The defense hasn't even started putting their case. And it's true. They're likely fatigued. It's day in and day out. And it's not like any other case, where you're just showing up at court, dealing with the, ordinary case. It's a high-profile case. Every morning when they go into the courtroom, they have to walk by the press. Every time when they leave, same thing. So it must be exhausting for them. But I will say, again, in my experience as a jury consultant, jurors take this role very seriously. So they see it as a job. And they really honored to be a part of this process.
Claudia, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to see what people are searching for online. The latest searches range from will Diddy testify to is Bad Boy still in business? ABC News contributor Kelly Carter is here to break it down for us. She covers entertainment and pop culture. Kelly, one of the most popular search topics tonight surrounds Combs's bodyguards. What do we know about him?
Yeah, D-Rock. So D-Rock's a former bodyguard of Sean Combs, but D-Rock's history with him goes a little bit further back. He was a childhood best friend of Notorious B.I.G., the rapper who really kind of set Bad Boy Records into the stratosphere. And I think people have been curious to see if he's going to take the stand and what he knew. And of course, it came up in testimony again today.
Everyone wants to know. Yeah. Will Diddy testify?
That's the big question, right? And I think we're going to get our answer relatively soon. It seems like the prosecution is getting ready to rest their case shortly. They've kind of given us indication of who else they're calling on the stand, and we'll see if he is going to testify. So just be a little bit more patient, people. We'll find out soon.
Another question we're seeing, is Bad Boy still in business?
Yeah, Bad Boy Records is absolutely still in business. Now, is it, chock full of all of the artists that it's had over the years? It is not. Right now, the people who are technically still on Bad Boy Records would be Christian Combs, one of Sean's sons, and Janelle Monáe is still technically a Bad Boy artist, even though she releases her music in collaboration with a larger conglomerate. But yes, it is still in business right now in 2025.
And in that same thought, people are asking, does Diddy own Biggie music?
It's a great question. Actually, in 2023, Sean Combs reassigned all of the music publishing rights back to his artists. So right now, the estate of Biggie Smalls owns 50% of it. And earlier this year, after the death of his mother, they sold 50% of it to Blue Primary Wave. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But it's a company that also owns legacy music. Like they own, Whitney Houston, Prince, Luther Vandross, people like that as well. And they take control of the likeness and all that good stuff. So no, the family owns half of that estate.
We should also mention that a lot of the web searches we're seeing are not even real. Kelly, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's an odd one, right? I think people are just so hungry to find out any information that sometimes I think people are falling for information that is not real. There are these AI-generated videos that are not truthful, and they're saying that certain people have testified that have not testified, and they're creating these videos. Don't fall for the hype. I know millions of people are watching these videos, but they are absolutely not real.
Good reminder for all of us. Kelly Carter, thank you as always for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. For even more on the Diddy trial, make sure to follow our podcast, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, hosted by our very own Brian Buckmeyer, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Have a good rest of your day.
I'm sorry, I had to step away. I missed the last part. Hold on. Hold on.
So that's why the defense is raising alarms.
Y'all please hit the like button.
Enough to dismiss this juror. Yes, he might have been
Jessica.
not totally consistent about where he lived, but it didn't rise to the level of, creating an issue about having ulterior motives or being a stealth juror. That's kind of why there was that tension. But I will say, my experience as seeing juries all over the country, and
this ain't the
totally
first time
about where he lived, but it didn't rise to the level of, creating an issue about having ulterior motives or being a stealth juror. That's kind of why there
got
was
a lot of men.
But I will say, my experience as as seeing juries all over the country and all these different types of trials, it's the juror that's replacing him is not a total loss. Older males tend to be better in these types of cases where you're dealing with the issue of consent, just because, the whole notion of psychological manipulation is a more novel notion, it's not as traditional as these older gentlemen tend to think.
I have to talk to you about just the sheer volume of hours they've been sitting, this jury in this court. 6 weeks of testimony, hour after hour of witnesses. Are they exhausted?
Yeah, it's a long trial, and they still have a ways to go. The defense hasn't even started putting their case. And it's true. They're likely fatigued. It's day in and day out, and it's not like any other case, where you're just showing up at court, dealing with the, ordinary case. It's a high-profile case. Every morning when they go into the courtroom, they have to walk by the press. Every time when they leave, same thing. So it must be exhausting for them. But I will say, again, in my experience as a jury consultant, jurors take this role very seriously, so they see it as a job. And they really honor to be a part of this process.
Claudia, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to see what people are searching for online. The latest searches range from will Diddy testify to is Bad Boy still in business? ABC News contributor Kelly Carter is here to break it down for us. She covers entertainment and pop culture. Kelly, one of the most popular search topics tonight surrounds Combs's bodyguards. What do we know about him?
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, D-Rock. So D-Rock's a former bodyguard of Sean Combs, but D-Rock's history with him goes a little bit further back. He was the childhood best friend of Notorious B.I.G., the rapper who really kind of set Bad Boy records into the stratosphere. And I think people have been curious to see if he's going to take the stand and what he knew. And of course, it came up in testimony again today.
Everyone wants to know. Yeah. Will Diddy testify?
That's the big question, right? And I think we're going to get our answer relatively soon. It seems like the prosecution is getting ready to rest their case shortly. They've kind of given us indication of who else they're calling on the stand, and we'll see if he is going to testify. So just be a little bit more patient, people. We'll find out soon.
Another question we're seeing, is Bad Boy still in business?
Yeah, Bad Boy Records is absolutely still in business. Now, is it, chock full of all of the artists that it's had over the years? It is not. I mean, right now, the people who are technically still on Bad Boy Records would be Christian Combs, one of Sean's sons. And Janelle Monáe is still technically a Bad Boy artist, even though she releases her music in collaboration with a larger conglomerate. But yes, it is still in business right now in 2025.
And in that same thought, people are asking, does Diddy own Biggie music?
It's a great question. Actually, in 2023, Sean Combs reassigned all of the music publishing rights back to his artists. So right now, the estate of Biggie Smalls owns 50% of it. And earlier this year, after the death of his mother, they sold 50% of it to Blue Primary Wave. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But it's a company that also owns legacy music. Like they own, Whitney Houston, Prince, Luther Vandross, people like that as well. And they take control of the likeness and all that good stuff. So no, the family owns half of that estate.
We should also mention that a lot of the webs.
But yes, it is still in business right now in 2025.
And in that same thought, people are asking, does Diddy own Biggie music?
It's a great question. Actually, in 2023, Sean Combs reassigned all of the music publishing rights back to his artists. So right now, the estate of Biggie Smalls owns 50% of it. And earlier this year, after the death of his mother, they sold 50% of it to Blue Primary Wave. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But it's a company that also owns legacy music. Like they own, Whitney Houston, Prince, Luther Vandross, people like that as well. And they take control of the likeness and all that good stuff. So no, the family owns half of that estate.
We should also mention that a lot of the web searches we're seeing are not even real. Kelly, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's an odd one, right? I think people are just so hungry to find out any information that sometimes I think people are falling for information that is not real. There are these AI-generated videos that are not truthful, and they're saying that certain people have testified that have not testified.
Right.
And they're creating these videos. Don't fall for the hype. I know millions of people are watching these videos, but they are absolutely not real.
Good
I don't even watch
Kelly
them.
Carter, thank you as always.
That's why I don't like people bringing me stuff they don't heard it from certain
every day of the trial
places.
show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. For even more on the Diddy New York, have a good rest of your day.
Hold on. Where we going next? This is why I don't allow certain stuff to be played. Hold on. My family thing. By the family, does she mean Puff Daddy? Chris. Probably his son, because his mom has passed, so I would assume it would be with his son, his children, because he's not married now anymore. Hold on, what's next? Let's see this one.
If a strand of your hair looks like this when it's wet, this is how it should look dry. This whole time, I thought I had wavy hair that was just frizzy.
Judge didn't just do a little, we're going to get into that and the significance of it, but we got to first talk about, so jurors today saw some of the Freakoff videos, which is a huge deal. We're going to get into that and the significance of it, but we got to first talk about jurors who are just dropping like flies. So the jurors are dropping like flies. There was a juror who was dismissed formally today, juror number 6, and another juror on the hot seat. Yeah. Waiting to find out his fate. We got to talk about juror number 6 because there is something more to this story. So last week, prosecutors said there's a problem with this guy. that he has talked to various people that he lives in New Jersey.
Hold on, let me put it over here.
When he was selected, he lived in the Bronx. And if he lived in New Jersey, he wouldn't be in the jury pool. So what's happened with this guy? You're right. And that's why the prosecution made the point to the judge that if he's living in Jersey, he told you one thing, but if he's living in Jersey and he's telling other people, then he shouldn't be on the jury. Because if you live in Jersey, you wouldn't be selected for this case in New York.
Right.
So the real implication is that the guy lied to the court.
Was dismissed formally today, juror number 6. And another juror on the hot seat.
Yeah. Waiting to find out his fate.
We got to talk about juror number 6.
You can't.
Because there is something more to this
Oh,
story. So,
hey, Candace, hey, Cream, 49,
prosecutors
794.
there's a problem with this guy.
Wasn't
That
Faith his
he
wife
has
yet, but she
talked
married to Stevie J
various
now.
People that he lives in New Jersey, but he told the court when he was selected he lived in the Bronx. And if he lived in New Jersey,
So
he
in
wouldn't be in the
2023, they were
jury
not
pool.
married.
So what's up with this guy?
Right, and that's why the prosecution made the point to the judge that if he's living in Jersey, he told you one thing, but if he's living in Jersey and he's telling other people, then he shouldn't be on the jury, because if you live in Jersey, you wouldn't be selected for this case in New York.
So the real implication is that the guy lied to the court to get on the jury.
And in fact, that's what the judge ended up saying right before dismissing juror number 6. He said, due to your lack of candor about where it is you live, there are too many inconsistencies. We have alternate jurors for a reason. And so number 6 gets the boot, and alternate juror comes in to watch today's testimony.
Well,
now that's the simple version of it.
It's more complicated.
There's
It is way
I won't say
more
conspiracy theory version.
I wouldn't
but-
call it a conspiracy.
No, I wouldn't. Well, it's a little conspiracy.
This is not a conspiracy. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. The judge let the defense, once the judge said, I'm inclined to boot this guy, the defense said, we want to make arguments to you. And
That was on Friday.
right, but usually, if a judge feels that somebody's clearly deceptive, yeah, you're out. But the defense gave the judge pause and he said, I want to think about this over the weekend.
I mean, the defense's main argument was that this was going to upset the diversity of the jury.
This guy is he's
black and
Hispanic. He is into 90s hip hop. And the recon that we have is that the defense felt that this guy wasn't necessarily buying the prosecution's arguments.
In other words, there was a better chance that he was going to side with Diddy than with the prosecution.
So then they're saying, and that's why the prosecution came up with this argument to get him off.
Now, here's the problem. This is why I say it's kind of conspiracy theorist. It's a black and white thing. Is the guy, does he live in the Bronx or does he live in Jersey?
It's not black and white.
And if he lives in Jersey,
It's not
then
black
he
and-
should not be on the jury. That's it.
It is not black and white.
Now, you can say that the prosecution is doing it because
Charles.
they don't want a guy who's going to side with Diddy. And I'm sure they don't.
How did he get in the jury pool? He got in the jury pool because
he
got
received the
a
summons. Right.
Well, the summons was clearly sent to the
To
Bronx.
the Bronx address.
So
Right.
he has either a wife or a girlfriend, we know. It could be,
Fiancé, I believe. Yeah.
well, it could be that he's kind of living with her, but he has a place in New Jersey too. And it's not as clear where he lives. But if he had no connection to the Bronx, how's he getting a jury summons for that area to appear in court? So there's some reason the federal government sent this dude now a jury summons.
I agree with you that it feels like there could have been a little bit more research done to figure out exactly what the story was. Maybe it is that he got the summons when he lived in the Bronx, but by the time he went in for jury selection, he had moved to New Jersey, in which case he should have said that during jury selection.
There's a correct.
So he lied.
If that were the case, should he have said that during jury selection? And all I'm saying is that it does seem odd that the judge didn't just do a little bit more research to get the actual answer.
Have you ever gotten a jury summons?
Yes.
How soon after you got the summons did you have to appear in court?
It's usually like a month or two.
Maybe a month. I mean, usually it's like you got to appear.
Believe me, I've gotten lots of them.
And they say he was
I don't
always
get it, like,
late.
You don't get it 3 weeks before you have to go in.
I get it like a month before.
Maybe you don't look at your mail. I get it. You have people. I get it. You have people for your mail.
Looking
He has
at my
people
mail.
for his mail.
That's-
I don't have
By the
people
way,
for my mail, so I have to
not
actually
true.
look at it.
He's just
Nobody gets a
talking
jury.
shit.
Nobody gets a jury summons
No way.
2-3 weeks before
They
they
get
have
it
to
a
go in.
month before.
They would have never known that he wasn't in there running his mouth trying to explain why he late.
Not as clear.
Talking to some more
And they
officials.
replaced it with a white guy.
He told on himself.
So the judge said,
Now,
there's plenty of.
Actually, I think we should make this very clear because I actually didn't even understand this until we were talking about it this morning.
Making
The judge
excuses
doesn't
for
pick-
why
they
he
have
be
offers.
late.
The judge doesn't go,
I guess that night
let
he
me
was
just take
in
one.
Jersey.
They're
I don't know,
I'm
but he
the
told
jury,
on
they're
himself. It
alternate
ain't
1,
nobody's
2,
fault.
3,
It wasn't
and they just
nothing
go in
to
order.
be
They know who one was.
the admins to
both
catch.
sides know
If the
who the
address they
alternates
sent
are.
it to and he came,
So
they
your point
make
is,
the assumption like everybody
prosecution
else
was
that that's the right
mixing it up
address.
was,
Had he
was
not
the
opened
white
his
guy,
mouth, they
so
would have
let's
never known.
kick the-
So it's
the
his
black
fault.
guy out.
Personally, I don't think that this is a racial thing at all. I don't think this
Definitely
is
not
racial. And to me,
racial.
fine. It's a white guy, it's a black guy, whatever. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that if it's true,
Shouldn't
that
have
the
been trying to buy off
prosecution
people.
felt this guy would be a problem for them. And I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that this guy had to have gotten a jury summons, presumably in the Bronx, certainly, and that complicates it. Okay, there's a second guy. Second,
the other
Another
juror,
guy.
That's right. There's another juror who is waiting to find out his fate because he went to the court on Friday and informed the judge about this text message that he had gotten. And he said to the judge, I don't know this number, I don't recognize this number.
But
the text message was a question. It said,
are you juror number 6,
Right.
the guy that was booted?
Oh
Because
wow,
lots of
yeah, he
people
gotta
were
go.
Already talking about juror number 6.
He
and
gotta
the fact
go.
that he might get booted. So this juror, another juror, not juror
He
number
got
6,
he
gets
gotta go. Oh,
asking him. So he felt like, look, I better share this with the judge.
He didn't
Hold on.
recognize the phone number.
Right. So
oh yeah,
told
they
the
playing them
judge-
type of
the
games, y'all.
judge, we're told, asks a bunch of questions, wants to get more information. What is
But
this
by
number?
the way, I think the lawyers were there too.
Yes, lawyers from both sides were there. And they get more information. And whatever answers the judge got back, what we know is that the judge is concerned that this juror is talking to other people outside about the case, about the fact that he is on the case. Because
It's even-
why would someone be asking him,
It's even more
are
specific.
you juror number
Right.
6?
It's specific.
He
What
gotta
I'm
go.
told is that there seemed to be.
How would they
pretty
even
good
know he
evidence
was a juror?
that this text message
He gotta go.
that he got with
People already talking about juror number 6 and the fact that he might get booted. So this juror, another juror, not juror number 6, gets this text asking him. So he felt like, look, I better share this with the
because
judge.
he didn't recognize the phone number.
Right. So
And because they
told
know
the
they
judge-
being watched.
The judge, we're told, asked a bunch of questions, wants to get more information. What is this number?
By the way, I think the lawyers were there too.
Yes, lawyers from both sides were there. And they get more information. And whatever answers the judge got back,
It better not be coming from no
what we know is that
cones.
the judge is concerned that this juror is talking to other people outside about the case, about the fact that he is on the case. Because
It's even-
why would someone be asking him?
It's even more.
Yeah, but y'all remember the what's his name? The Garcia guy, where the video of the hotel when Christina KK was wanting them to provide the video, and he told them they had to get the subpoena. Then all of a sudden they called him on a number that he never gave to any of them. So it could be coming from the Combs. So I ain't taking none of that off the table because they did it to the Garcia guy.
Are you juror number 6?
It's specific. What I'm told is that there seemed to be pretty good evidence that this text message that he got with
Was
that
actually
phone
from
number
someone he
was
knows.
someone he knew and was allegedly talking to this guy about the case. I mean,
It
it's not
sounds
allowed to do.
like if it's someone
Ooh,
he
he out.
knows, then that person was basically checking in with them to say, all right, I just read about juror number 6.
Were you the guy?
Is that you? Is that you who's getting kicked off?
That's a problem. So
That's a problem.
because it's not.
That mean they talking.
This jury was not sequestered.
Right, and so everyone understands that, yes, the jury instructions are that they're not supposed to talk to
they need to
anybody
fight. Once they
outside,
get caught, they gotta go.
of the court about this. They're not even supposed to talk to their fellow jurors about this until they go into deliberate. So
you know, the weird thing is that even the judge knows that jurors violate the rules, because the judge put a gag order on all the lawyers in the case.
Once they get caught,
and the defense.
they gotta go.
So if you really believe that the jurors aren't going to watch, you know, social media or television or anything else,
then it wouldn't matter.
There's no need for a gag order. The only reason to impose the gag order is you know the jurors are going to violate the rule, and you got to protect against that, which is really kind of crazy when you think about it. But these lawyers, in fact, I have a podcast with Mark Garagos, who is, you know, his daughter is one of the lead lawyers in the case, and he seems to be, although he won't give me a straight answer, it's kind of consulting. The gag's on him. So it's sort of like, why are you gagging lawyers if you've told the jury not to look, if you really believe they won't look? Clearly, the judge
knows it happens, but the problem is once it comes to the judge's attention that someone
once it
done it, now
there's a problem.
Can't look the other way.
And you know,
so I don't know how this juror stays on with the judge knowing this.
So, you know, look, it's harder for the prosecution, because if, like, for example, juror number 6 really was kind of doubting the prosecution's case, all it takes is one vote, and there's a hung jury. And if there's a hung jury, that benefits the defense, because then the defense has watched the entire case the prosecution puts on, and the defense in the second trial has a real advantage over the first. And so the prosecution needs to corral all 12. And so that raises even a bigger issue about juror number 6.
And by the way, I was just remember I know you sure read about it while you were gone, that there was a day that the judge threatened to kick Diddy out of his own trial because he was looking in the direction of the jury and nodding, agreeing with his defense attorneys tearing apart the credibility of one of the witnesses, and he was just nodding about it, but he was doing it looking at the jury. I don't know for a fact that it was juror number 6 that he was looking at directly, or if it was any particular juror, but that would be those are one of the things that give the prosecution and the defense an indication of which way jurors might be leaning.
You know why I'm smiling is that I'm just thinking, boy, talk about playing to the jury. All I can think about when I read about this, all I could think about was OJ putting the glove on and showing the jury it doesn't fit, and you're looking at the jury. And so the theatrics sometimes get rewarded. So,
all right, this feels almost illegal to know.
Oh, yeah, we got another juror on their way out.
Desperately needed to be replaced.
I think the big deal today is that the jury watched snippets of these Freakoff videos.
They saw a bunch of them. I didn't see.
That's at 3 videos.
Video
from 3 different videos.
Snippet, like 30 seconds of several different Freakoffs. Remember, they have all these videos that were recovered, presumably at Diddy's off hard drives that Diddy had,
right.
But and different devices. We know that Cassie had provided some that she had on devices, but they got to see these things, and it was not played for open court. It was literally just on monitors that each juror got to see. They had headphones on. Even the attorneys on both sides, they didn't see it in open court. So just for the jury, what we're told by people in the courtroom is that our producer is in the courtroom and said that a lot of the guys were watching intently, but not necessarily creepily, but watching it, wanting to see what's going on here. There weren't any audible gasps or anything. Everybody.
This jury has been so impassive the entire trial that it's so hard to read them. But I gotta say, the importance of the Freakoff videos, it's not just to be salacious. One of the things they're going to be looking at is Cassie and seeing, is she into it? Is she into it?
Right.
And, that's what the defense is arguing. The prosecution is saying, behind the scenes, there was plenty of pressure, plenty of coercion.
Right. And they talked about it when she was testifying.
Right.
Because I think, obviously, they knew that these videos are going to be played. They certainly recognized that jurors are going to be looking at that, and that's why they had Cassie address that, saying that, yes, I did it, but I was doing it because I was pressured, because he was threatening me, and that this was all I was in his life, was the thing to be brought out for freak-offs, and that he never did anything to help my career. This goes to whether or not Diddy was trafficking her, and the jurors got to see this whole thing play out in freak-offs.
It could also go to racketeering if she was extorted.
Right.
But I gotta say, just days after the trial began, the testimony began, they showed the prosecution showed jurors still images of a few freak-offs, and it's interesting because we're now close to the end of the prosecution's case, and they chose to show these videos at the end rather than the beginning. A lot of people thought they'd show it at the beginning to kind of set the stage, but in a way, it's certainly more dramatic. And yes, and drama is a part of litigation, trying a case, and it is more dramatic when you have all the testimony in the backdrop than to suddenly show what everybody's been talking about.
What they've been waiting for, really, because they were told during jury selection, you are going to see videos, you are going to see photos, are going to be graphic of a graphic sexual content. So now they got to see it.
Now we can't, at least personally, I can't say who's a winner and who's a loser in this, because it all depends on how the jury receives it. And if we could get some kind of a noticeable reaction from jurors,
right,
that would be one thing. But they are so impassive.
What's interesting is, even if there had been, so let's say that there was a gasp, we still wouldn't know. We wouldn't know what they were gasping at.
Right.
They showed them in court.
It would be worse than we'd all sit there going, well, wait, what happened on that video?
Right. But it is really hard to read this. I mean, look, everybody has opinions about this. There are 12 people in a box who are going to decide this case, and they view it differently. I'm telling you, jurors view it differently because, for the most part, they really try and follow the evidence, follow the law. I know that sounds Pollyanna, but it's true. They really do. Not always, but often they really try and follow it, and they don't have that kind of passion or, kind of point of view that everybody else has from the outside.
Right. They're looking, this is their job. This is their job every day, and they're taking it seriously. So they're not going to have the same view that you do, hearing bits and pieces throughout the day.
But also,
which could be good or bad.
When we say they, there may not be a they here. It may be split. We don't know. I mean, it could be they all feel the same way, or 5 feel one way and 7 feel a different way, or 2 don't have any point of view. You don't know.
I was just thinking, if you're the alternate number 1 who got to actually participate today, all the alternates are watching and hearing all the testimony, taking their own notes. But your first day, where you're actually on the jury, you're watching Freakoff.
Yeah.
So
it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Guess I signed up for this. Okay, we will see tomorrow.
Did he say who the winner was? No, they sure hate to say it when it's the prosecution. Let's go.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
They hate
So
it.
we are officially at trial
They have
day number 24,
integrity
but
issues.
first let's recap trial day number 23.
Let's
so day
go.
23
Shout out
of Sean
to,
P. Diddy
Chronicle
Combs'
Speak.
federal trial was intense from start to finish, filled with heated legal battles, bombshell testimony, and even a surprise appearance from Mr. Kanye West himself. Now the big
How
moment,
Jesus
the
is
court
God.
officially dismissed juror number 6 after finding inconsistencies in where he claimed to live. The judge said this raised concerns about his honesty and qualifications to serve. Diddy's defense lost their attempt to block
I told
text
Big
messages
Pressure about
a
that
mysterious
integrity.
device. 1, the court ruled the texts were not protected by attorney-client privilege and can be used in court. The defense also asked the judge to instruct the jury that Brianna Bongolan lied about her injuries. They claim she falsely testified that Diddy injured her back, leg, and neck all on the same day in 2016. Now, we heard from federal agent Andre Lamont.
Isn't it ironic that they wanted to crucify her for getting the days wrong? She said the 26th or the 27th, and it actually happened on the 30th. But this man lied about if he is in the right district or not, if he's in the Bronx or in New Jersey or someplace else. And they said, oh, it's no big deal. You know, oh, we can move on. Oh, look, so y'all gonna look over that. Oh, okay. So she can't get 3 or 4 years later. She can't be off a couple of days because we know the incident happened, but it didn't happen on the day that she said, although she said, I did a bunch of, you know, drugs, and I did a whole bunch of this and a whole bunch of that. Yeah, but y'all are okay with letting that liar slide because he's a black guy, who was nodding and taking on to his nods and stuff. Y'all tripping. That's why y'all got busted.
Through the March 2024 raid
and finna get busted again.
Mansion. Now, he testified about 900 bottles of Astroglide, 200 bottles of baby oil, all found throughout Diddy's home, a safe containing Diddy's passport. They also found Molly, ketamine, lingerie, and more. There were several firearms, including one with the serial number filed.
I need for y'all to double tap the screen. If you're on your phone, double tap. My numbers got to go up. I'm not going to play this game with y'all all night again. Either you're going to do the thumbs up on your computer, desktop, or laptop, or I need for you to double tap the face of your screen. So when I go out, I'm going to go out.
And armor-piercing ammunition. We also heard from Jonathan.
Could we use your house to trial our 24-hour bathroom upgrade system? We're looking for homeowners with
armor-piercing ammunition. We also heard from Jonathan Perez.
This don't have nothing to do with sexual preference. Are you tripping? Me, you. This don't have nothing to do with his sexual preference.
He confirmed that
you off. You totally off.
With red lights, adult toys, and DRUGS.
You totally off. Please.
He said that he was asked to bring cash for Jane after a violent fight that she had with Diddy. Perez revealed that he found an S3X video.
What does SEXUAL preference have to do with him bribing the hotel employee for a video that he told him he needed to get a subpoena for or contact the police? There go one. What does this his preference have to do with him telling Cassie's mama that he need $20,000 or he going to release a video footage of her daughter at her job? That's two. What does that have to do with assistant Capricorn have to take polygraphs, kidnap, taken to the park at night, saying, I don't know about you, they're going to find you up the river? I ain't said nothing about SEX. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? I ain't said nothing about SEX preference. But I can name off some things that he did that had nothing to do with it. So no, that's not why he's on trial. Because I could continue dangling people off of balconies. Because his main I don't know what name, cause Cassie didn't want to fool with him. He didn't know where she was. Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? It don't have nothing to do with it. So shh. You sound slow. You sound like
involving Jane on an iPad and told Diddy
you go the long way to get on the slow bus.
And the court played an audio recording from Quorum discussing how to handle the video. Perez admitted that he bought DRUGS for Diddy, including cocaine.
Yeah, what about that?
Xanax, and
that don't have nothing to do
no physical violence
with preference.
Facilitate activities. Jane
I can't deal with slow people. This is not the slow people section.
Downplay Jane's trauma, painting
platform.
her as jealous rather than a victim, especially after Diddy's attorney Brian Steele asked Jonathan Perez if Jane seemed
next
like
time
a willing
speak when you come
participant
in,
the Wild King
and I
race,
won't tell you about
responded,
yourself
yes.
so
Now, we
hard.
also had Kanye West show up that day. It was an unexpected twist. Kanye West made a brief appearance in court to support Diddy. He was dressed in all white, caused a stir to downplay Jane's trauma, painting her as jealous rather than a victim, especially after Diddy's attorney Brian Steele asked Jonathan Perez if Jane seemed like a willing participant in the Wild King nights, in which he responded yes. Now, we also had Kanye West show up that day. It was an unexpected twist. Kanye West made a brief appearance in court to support Diddy. He was dressed in all white, caused a stir in the lobby, and left about 40 minutes later. Now, the trial day closed, and we had the permanent dismissal of juror number 6, who the judge believed may have lied to get on the jury. This was a controversial move, especially with concerns about the lack of Black and Hispanic representation on the panel. Now, Diddy's team fired back in defense of juror number 6, and we are going to get into that, day number 24, and so much more. But before we do, please be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any news regarding this case, and so much more. Now let's get back into it. So as you recall, juror number 6 was dismissed shortly after trial day number 6 ended. Now Diddy's team is not having it. They sent this to Judge Subramanian yesterday. They're saying that this juror should not be dismissed. They argue that juror number 6 did not lie or do anything deceptive. Any inconsistencies in his answers about where he lived, the Bronx versus New Jersey, are minor and harmless. The judge even acknowledged earlier in court that the confusion could be due to how the questions were asked, not dishonesty. They're saying that losing this juror hurts Diddy's rights to a fair trial. The juror was one of the 2 only Black men on the jury. The defense argues that having racially diverse jurors is vital for fairness, especially when race and power dynamics are at play in the accusation.
Let's be clear. Diddy has several people, his assistants, set up hotel freak nights, king nights, all that different stuff. They are the one of the assistant, the one that quit because he saw too much illegal stuff, said that he will have hotels set up under Frank Black and Frank White, some of them at the same time at different locations under the same name. Now, I don't know if you missed that, but that came out when that assistant, James or whatever his name is, so he uses Frank Black and he also uses Frank White. So yes, he could have been booked under more than one hotel in different states because they said he also booked of what do they call hotel nights or freak-offs for not just Diddy and Cassie, but for other rap celebrities. So miss me with that one, a WG. He could be in more than one place. And on top of that, I said earlier that instead of the 27th, it was the 30th. The expert pulled the information, and indeed it happened. So it's not a question on if she was dangled. She was. She wasn't dangled on the 27th. She was dangled on the 30th. But she was violent and coercion.
The case involves sexual
That's why they still want it out.
Black man. They also suspect discrimination. They think the government targeted this juror because he's Black. The government used 7 out of
y'all better do y'all research before y'all come over here.
The juror was one of the 2 only Black men on the jury. The defense argues that having racially diverse jurors is vital for fairness.
Ooh, now in all fairness, I hope this other one that ain't did the okie doke, that didn't have the phone problems, I hope he ain't the last Black. I hope his sure ends. I hope, ooh wee man, I hope the guy that's in trouble now ain't the last Black guy. In all fairness, baby, because he already what they say, up the river without shit up a paddle, whatever they say. Baby, he might as well really just, say what's the least amount of years I can give. God damn. Everything I try, God just ain't on my side. He ain't on your side. Kanye stunt, diversion, that shit ain't nothing working for you, partner. Your time is up. What did who asked him that? Ray J said, I don't know which Illuminati higher up you pissed off, but you pissed them off.
And power dynamics are at play in the accusations. The case involves sexual misconduct allegations against a powerful black man. They also suspect discrimination. They think the government targeted this juror because he's
I wonder
black.
what
the
the
government used
deal.
7 out of its 9
Oh,
jury
he gonna
strikes
tell
to
it.
remove black jurors during selection. And the defense says this shows a pattern of racial
No, he
bias.
coming
The court
tomorrow.
didn't find official proof
He was there
of
today.
discrimination earlier.
He was there.
Bottom line, the defense wants juror number 6 back.
Oh, yeah, Pressure. When I heard them, some people read the transcripts. He was there. They still using this service. What was it called? The people who what is it called? Where they tell all your dirt. They was just taking longer today. But Brandon Paul was in court today. He was there.
Judge insists on keeping
He
him
should be
removed.
coming on
they
tomorrow.
They want to declare mistrial because they believe Diddy won't get a fair shake with that juror gone. Okay, so let's get into day number 24. Now, before the jurors are brought in, Judge Subramanian says, I hope everyone had a good weekend. The defense's motion for a NAPU instruction to the jury that witness Mongolian committed perjury. She was questioned at length on this. I denied the defense's motion. Now on to juror number 6. The record raised serious concerns about the jurors shading the answers to be on the jury. The shifting answers raised questions about the jurors' credibility, so the court indicated that juror number 6 should be dismissed. The defense now urges further questioning. The defense raised concerns about replacing an African-American juror with a white one and cite a 2D circuit
He was the
case.
next one up.
Takes this seriously, but further questioning is inappropriate and might negatively impact the jury. This is why we have alternates. Mr. Donaldson praised the diversity
That's why they
of this
have
jury
alternates.
and said this process worked wonderfully. The defense asked the court to base its decision on race.
Leaving that
would be
cook.
inappropriate. So juror number 6 is excused and is replaced by the first alternate. As to the defense's allegation of prosecutorial misconduct here, that is inviting the court to make a decision based on race and cannot be granted. As to the issue about another juror that arose on Friday, I will question that juror at the end of today's session. The party should tell me if we clear the courtroom or do it in the robing room. Now this just in, we have news.
Oh, well,
from
you
TMZ
missed it,
that a juror
WG. They
received a
talked about that
mysterious
already.
text message on Friday
It was thrown out.
asking if he was juror number 6.
That was thrown
The judge
out.
is fearful that he could possibly be blabbing. The judge is going to address it today, but we have information from TMZ saying Diddy's trial is still on the verge of another jury shakeup due to one of them getting a strange text message that's left the judge with concerns this juror is talking about the case outside of the court. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ that the juror alert.
It is not, they selected the jury. They have alternatives. This is no different than any other setup. And whoever is next that are part of the alternatives. He shouldn't have been shaking his head, and the other cat should with Diddy, and and he shouldn't have been in there running his mouth, bragging about him living here, there, everywhere, bragging that Papa was a Rolling Stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home, and they would not have known. So it is not about a prejudice. This is not unusual. It could have been an all white, all female, but it wasn't. So people need to stop going in there lying, allowing somebody to buy them off. Yeah. Stop looking for clues and signs, rolling their eyes when he's shaking his head. They need to stop. I tried to tell you the other day when he got in trouble about shaking his head up and down, all the way around, that all eyes was on him and all eyes was on the jury. Now they got special people in there watching everybody's body language and facial expressions. Cause a dumb Diddy. Yeah. That's what he get.
alerted the court on Friday about the text message.
So I don't care nothing about no prejudice, and it ain't for no appeal. Because one of them, hold on. Remember, go back when they asked him to consider. He threw up his hand for appeal. So it ain't gonna work. Ain't none of that's gonna work.
Judge Arun Subramanian might dismiss.
Hi, Raymond.
The juror wanted the judge to know about the
Hi, Robert
mysterious
DeLeon.
text, and indeed, Judge Subramanian did have a lot of questions for him about the messages and the phone number from which it came. Sources say the juror did not recognize the phone number. However, the judge has concerns he might be court. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ that the juror was juror number 6. The judge is fearful that he could possibly be blabbing. The judge is going to address it today, but we have information from TMZ saying Diddy's trial is still on the verge of another jury shakeup due to one of them getting a strange text message that's left the judge with concerns this juror is talking about the case outside of the court. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ that the juror alerted the court on Friday about the text message from a phone number he didn't recognize, alerting him if he was juror number 6, who'd already been in the news as someone Judge Arun Subramanian might dismiss. TMZ states that the juror wanted the judge to know about the mysterious text, and indeed, Judge Subramanian did have a lot of questions for him about the messages and the phone number from which it came. Sources say the juror did not recognize the phone number. However, the judge has concerns he might be discussing the trial with people who are not on the jury, which obviously would be a major violation of the judge's instructions. Now let's go ahead and bring the jurors to follow rules. The jurors are now entering. Welcome back, says the judge. The government may call its next witness. Prosecution says first some exhibits entered under seal subject to connection. Now we call our first witness Miss Sankar. Miss Ananya Sankar, paralegal specialist at the U.S. Attorney's Office. What did you work on in this case? 2 summary charts I was asked to verify the accuracy of. Prosecutor says, can you describe the documents underlying these charts? Hundreds of pages. And who is in the messages in the chart? Christina Coram. And whose cell phone number is this? Brendan Paul. How did Ms. Coram respond to Mr. Lopez about seeing the escort? 4 laughing emojis. How long was he going to stay awake? And this one from January 30th, 2023. Is it an audio file? Yes. Ms. Foster, please play the first minute and 10 seconds. The audio is playing. Christina's voice is playing through the audio, and she says 2 things were weird. The only person who knew was you. Someone found it in the iPad. Prosecution says, what did Christina Coram say in this? Sankar says, she says he's going to the 4 Seasons and he wants you to bring Gatorade and chicken noodle soup. Prosecution says, read this. I'll be Dave
chicken
Shirley.
Noodle soup.
Rock riding with him.
Applesauce.
Sankar says no to Rock.
Raisins.
Continues.
And
Can you
cornflakes.
$4,000 cash from Rock to the hotel? Prosecutor, as Dave Shirley says, sure. Sankar's KK says, heads up, he's about to do Wild Kings tonight. Dave Shirley says, forgot to pick up the money, just give it to Fahim just in case. What does the hotel write to Miss Coram? That hotel called Paul is coming up. Does Paul appear somewhere in the chart? Yes. Let's turn off the exhibit screens to the public and the press. The judge says, just let me know when they are off. Prosecution says, please read these between Jane and Miss Coram. Sankar's KK says, ask them if they can bring up 15 bath towels. Jane says he always brings me 5 to 10K. They are expecting people to leave the presidential suite at 1 p.m. Sankar's KK says we're taking off. What are these about? They are setting up a flight for Jane. What's this? Flight information for Jessica Ruiz to KK, for Arthur Jr. and Paul. And these, can you pick up cash for Guido at Mapleton? Prosecutor, as Jane says, yes. Prosecution says going in time. Could we? Combs' lawyer says objection to going in time. Prosecution says I withdraw to going in time. Who is this between? Sankar says Sean Combs and Christina Coram. They say Guido hasn't dropped off the package yet. What does Coram write to Sean Combs? She writes, Guido is outside. Combs replies with an audio message. Okay, let's play it. Combs sounds hoarse and he says, about Guido. Take care of it, please. Prosecution says, what does Christina Coram respond? Done. Okay, so let's just take a quick step back. We've all been wondering, is Christina Coram going to testify? She's not. So for context, this witness works with the Department of Justice, possibly as a paralegal, and she's testifying about the paper and the money trail, including financial movements, Freakoff's, Christina Quorum's involvement, and related communications. Now, she also prepared exhibits to support her testimony, and these exhibits are being entered into evidence in place of calling certain other witnesses. So she's pretty much tying in these key points so we can get a full picture of what these different witnesses have been saying in these certain timelines. Prosecution continues. Do some of these messages involve Cassie Ventura? Yes. Okay, page 5, May 2nd, 2017. What are these? Text between Cassie Ventura and KK. Okay, prosecution as Ventura says, what the F? Sandcars KK says, are you okay? No one deserves to be dragged by their hair, no. Okay, prosecution says, row 87 to 92, April 20th, 2018. Cassie and KK. Cassie says, I just can't anymore. KK says, I'm here for you. Heart emoji. I'm bummed, but don't want to derail. Definitely don't derail. It's not worth it. Let's turn to Jane's messages. You read Jane. Sandcars Jane says, we got into a fight. I'm not doing hotel night. I'll bring him a cake. So to give more context to this situation, messages sent to Sean Combs' chief of staff, Christina Quorum, suggest that she was aware that the mogul's ex-girlfriend felt mistreated and sexually exploited and didn't want to participate in any more freak-offs or hotel nights. The ex, who testified last week under the pseudonym Jane, sent Christina Quorum messages in early November 2023 saying that she wanted no more hotel nights and I just can't. Then after
Pressure, what you looking for is coming in his Florida, his upcoming lawsuit. This is New York. What's the Star Island, all those freak offs and stuff with the celebrities? That's in Miami. Bad boys. Bad boys. That's in Miami, baby. That's coming after this. Let's go.
Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit a couple of weeks later, Combs himself appeared to forward screenshots of texts he received from Jane saying that she felt extremely exploited, heartbroken, and manipulated by you. Combs also appeared to send Quorum audio files of phone calls he recorded with Jane in immediate aftermath of the Ventura lawsuit. Jane told Combs that the lawsuit described word for word her experience. Prosecution says, what is the date of this filing? November 16, 2023. What are these? Audio files from November 19, 2023. Okay, let's play it. Phone ringing. Combs' voice says, we can't really talk on this phone. You know what I'm saying? I called, I reached out to you. You know what I'm saying? My love is definitely true. Just some kinky shit that I thought we definitely enjoyed. Jane says, I don't know. Her voice begins to crack. It's like word for word. It's like crazy to me. I feel sick. Combs says, but like you know, and then the audio turns off. Let's play the next one, says prosecution. Audio of Combs says, I really need your friendship right now. Don't need no text back. I just really needed to tell you that I need your friendship. I gotta meet my moms, you know what I'm saying? Please pray for me. Jane says, okay, and the audio turns off. 3 days later, what are these? KK writes, we all know your kryptonite. Combs says, please make sure Robin makes sure that rent is paid. KK said, Robin said her rent was paid. Okay, and what is this? An image found on Ms. Quorum's phone from December 28, 2023. A photo of a cell phone screen. It says, I lost work opportunities. Sandcars Jane says, you broke me. You asked me what I needed to move on, and now you're upset? Who are these between? Jane and KK. He said he would send the tapes to my baby daddy. I'm traumatized. He asked me who I'm seeing over and over again. He'll send the S tapes to the father of my child. On them, I'm DRUGGED. I'm beyond hurt by him. What does Miss Quorum say? I haven't spoken to him. And these photos of a cell phone, can you read them? Jane says, you have effed up everything. You win. Okay, what are these? Videos found on KK's device. Miss Foster, play.
And on the cool pressure, we for y'all who believe that Rico Suave, cause remember, you better hope Texas don't pop up in there, cause one of his other victims in that Miami stuff, that English girl who said that she started out just being a waitress kind of like thing with the wings on her back. Remember, she said that Diddy and Yella had a little old house with trafficking in the cliff. They got that little business together. So let's just hope that don't come up, cause she's dang so so said it, cause she said she know for sure, cause Beezy hired her to come to Dallas to work or dance or whatever at this little spot in the cliff. So that's just hope that's hope Texas. Oh baby, cause if Texas get pulled up in this shit, it's gonna be woo-wee, man.
A woman's voice says, like $1,000. What's in the photo? Like a long manicured nail. What does KK write? As KK says,
that's what you know right now.
Out to shop like King Night Mode. Or
just sit back and wait for it. Miami coming. Miami gonna be Rico in Miami as well.
Judge says, okay.
Trust that.
Time for break. Okay,
trust that.
They're back. Prosecution says, Ms. Sandcar, what does this exhibit show? Messages of Sean Combs and Damian Butler, aka D-Rock and Mia. So the prosecution homed in on February 2024 text between Sean Combs, his security staffer Damian D-Rock Butler, and Mia, a former personal assistant to Combs. These messages, which were presented in a chart, showed Combs and Butler trying to contact Mia over a period of a week and communicating with each other.
All this evidence coming out, child, please. It's gonna be a federal Rico in Florida. I don't know about California, but I dang sure know about
key details of Cassie
Florida.
Ventura's testimony, saying she had witnessed the former boss physically abuse his ex-girlfriend. Prosecution says turn off the screens to the public and the press. Please read D-Rock's messages. Sandcar's D-Rock says, love you,
it ain't us. It's the females that they was hiring to do these acts. So don't say get off of it, WG. You sound like you late to the party. It's things that done happened and been exposed that you don't know nothing about. So don't come over here telling us to get off of it because you late to the party and you riding a little slow bus. But it ain't me. It's the people that they hired. It's the people that they hired to do these acts that's telling their stories now. So don't get mad at us. Get mad at your lover, your homie lover friend who asked you riding. Yeah, get up out his ass. Yeah, and sit back and enjoy the show. Hit the like button and support the platform. He way late to the party. Way late. My T-Sipper's been exposed to it, been told about it, been done heard it come out her mouth. So you go on over there where you been, where y'all late now. Yeah, you not finna spread no fake narratives over here because you late to the party.
I was scuba diving. D-Rock says we're opening up a new realms of sexually abusing her and corroborating key details of Cassie Ventura's testimony, saying she had witnessed the former boss physically abuse his ex-girlfriend. Prosecution says turn off the screens to the public.
Tell him, Joanne, he way late.
Please read D-Rock's messages. Sandcar's D-Rock says, love you, man. If you need a friend, I'm here. Combs says, I'll call you back. Talking to the kids. D-Rock to Mia says, where are you? Mia says, Virginia Beach. D-Rock's text her number to Combs. Mia's text to D-Rock says, I didn't have my phone. I was scuba diving. D-Rock says, we're opening up a new restaurant on the 17th. He says he doesn't want anything from you. Mia continues, super smart to stay in your bubble. I am on the island off the coast of Honduras.
Well, I would hope so, because the feds know about it.
Honduras. Let me know if I could send you something.
Kathy.
Mia says, I never asked for anything. D-Rock says, I'm allowed to send my sister a gift, right? So Combs texts Mia shortly after, and he says, hey, I don't want to be blowing up your phone.
But that one guy didn't. The one with the video that took the bribe didn't do his taxes. Hold on. Because Diddy told him not to. Have y'all been watching? Are y'all just new and come in here? Yeah, I'm not finna. Stop typing a WG. I don't want to see your comments anymore. Stop typing. Stop typing until you do your research. Have y'all been listening? Because that came out with the guy who took the how much 100K. Diddy told him not to do nothing. Don't spend money. Don't write off. I mean, don't none of that. He told him not to. Yeah.
Jogged on some things. Combs continued, "You were my right hand for years, and I just want to speak to you, to remember who was even around me." He sent security staffer D-Rock Butler a copy of the same text. The conversation took place when Combs was already battling multiple sexual assault lawsuits, including trafficking allegations from Cassie Ventura. So to give context to this situation, you remember defense lawyer Teeny Garagos was trying to highlight individual messages and time periods to cast doubt on how involved Sean Combs' staff was in procuring drugs and coordinating freak-offs for their boss, or intending to the physical and emotional wounds of his ex-girlfriends. For example, regarding the lengthy text message between D-Rock Butler and Combs as they were trying to get in touch with his former assistant Mia. Summary witness Anaya Sandcar confirmed that there were no records showing Combs calling Mia after February 7th, 2024. Now, Garagos also highlighted certain periods when Chief of Staff Christina Coram didn't appear to have communications about freak-offs, DRUG deliveries, or physical abuse, including long stretches in 2019 and 2020, according to the government summary chart. Prosecution to Ms. Sandcar says, "Did you have any other involvement in this case?"
You've probably heard about Boxable's flagship product, the Casita.
No further questions, Your Honor. Judge says, Ms. Garagos. Teeny Garagos says, "Ms. Sandcar, this message from Damian Butler to Sean Combs, let's pull up the exhibit. Line 363, days later, the legal filing. Please read Nat Moore." Sandcar is reading as Nat Moore and says, "The article could have been worse. They are calling it a breakup fight." Garagos says, "Let's read some more messages not included in the chart. They're being queued up now. Now the messages populate." Garagos says, "Jane writes, I could be dropped off at my building's front desk." And KK writes, "He speaks directly with PD. I don't deal with him, laugh out loud, right?" "Right," says Sandcar. Jane writes to KK, "Pulling up to the airport, smiley face. I'm excited to surprise him." Garagos says, "May I cover with Prosecutor Foster?" Judge says, "Of course. Jurors, while we wait, I'm going to stand up and stretch. You may as well." Garagos says, "I think we need to cover the screens for the public and the press." Here we go, November 22nd, 2023, between Jane and KK, right? "Yes," says Sandcar. Jane said, "I'm not doing any more hard partying." Then this one about the 3 years of wasted time. Here's KK to Mr. Perez asking how does he look, and Mr. Perez replies, "Shockingly good, better than before, right?" "Yes." Nothing further. Judge says, "Next government witness, another special agent about more charts. These about certain meetings." Chart being shown is about the meeting in the London hotel involving Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura, and Jurors. The chart that's currently being shown lists the flights taken by the meeting participants, including Jules Theodore, aka Jules, and Cassie Ventura. Prosecution says special agent on the chart. Defense says objection. Judge says sidebar. The sidebar is over. Judge says, "Ms. Johnson." Prosecutor Johnson says, "When you say attended, do you mean to say the people concerned appeared from records, absent a video, to have attended?" Special agent says yes. "Who are the participants in this chat?" Jules and Sean Combs. So the jury saw more records to support a purported December 2009 meeting between Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura and an escort named Jules at the London Hotel in New York City. The records included the flight and hotel for the weekend that were paid for with Sean Combs' American Express card, and the record showed that Combs paid for the flights for Ventura and Jules in a room at the hotel. Okay, you read Jules.
Who paid what?
I'm available.
So he paid transportation.
Which one?
He paid for them. Hold on.
Records absent, right? Right, says Sandcar. Jane writes to KK, "Pulling up to the airport, smiley face. I'm excited to surprise him." Garagos says, "May I cover with Prosecutor Foster?" Judge says, "Of course. Jurors, while we wait, I'm going to stand up and stretch. You may as well." Garrigo says, I think we need to cover the screens for the public and the press. Here we go, November 22nd, 2023, between Jane and KK, right? Yes, says Sandcar. Jane said, I'm not doing any more hard partying. Then this one about the 3 years of wasted time. Here's KK to Mr. Perez asking how does he look, and Mr. Perez replies, shockingly good, better than before, right? Yes. Nothing further. Judge says next government witness, another special agent about more charts. These about certain meetings. Chart being shown is about the meeting in the London hotel involving Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura, and Jules. The chart that's currently being shown lists the flights taken by the meeting participants, including Jules Theodore, aka Jules, and Cassie Ventura. Prosecution says special agent on the chart. Defense says objection. Judge says sidebar. The sidebar is over. Judge says Ms. Johnson. Prosecutor Johnson says when you say attended, do you mean to say the people concerned appeared from records absent a video to have attended? Special agent says yes. Who are the participants in this chat? Jules and Sean Combs. So the jury saw more records to support a purported December 2009 meeting between Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura and an escort named Jules at the London Hotel in New York City. The records included the flight and hotel for the weekend that were paid for with Sean Combs' American Express card.
Oh yeah, he out of here, y'all.
That Combs paid for the flights for Ventura and Jules in a room at the hotel. Okay, you read Jules. Agent says, as Jules, I'm available Friday through Sunday.
Brandon the Mule is gonna be he's gonna be the final nail in the coffin.
Friday at 4. Where are the flights between LA, JFK,
and New York?
Do document retention policies impact your ability to get documents? Yes, I could not get these records. Okay, now it's time for lunch break. So the testimony will resume a bit later today at 1:45 as the parties discuss how the rest of Special Agent Delicia Penland's testimony will go this afternoon. Now, Penland will not be allowed to draw too many inferences based on the summary chart stating only what was contained in various correspondence and how they align with specific dates, locations, hotel reservations, and travel itineraries. So her restrictions are due to her not being an expert witness. She's a summary witness.
Did I tell you not to type no more? WG?
By having her suggest conclusions that are for the jury to make. The chart is allowed under Rule 1006, which is a summary of voluminous records, and the agent can't add personal opinion or assumptions to it. Now, what she can do is state what documents show, like the dates, locations, names. She can explain how she organized the data, and she can testify about what she found, but not what it means beyond the surface. So while the jury is still out, the judge says, shall we discuss Mr. Brendan Paul right now? Now, as you recall, Brendan Paul was one of Diddy's alleged PRUG runners, but he ended up getting off. How did he do it? We don't know. So after the judge asked that question, prosecutor says back hotel reservations and travel itineraries. So her restrictions are due to her not being an expert witness. She's a summary witness. The court wants to avoid unfair influence on the jury by having her suggest conclusions that are for the jury to make. The chart is allowed under Rule 1006, which is the summary of voluminous records, and the agent can't add personal opinion or assumptions to it. Now, what she can do is state what documents show, like the dates, locations, names. She can explain how she organized the data, and she can testify about what she found, but not what it means beyond the surface. So while the jury is still out, the judge says, shall we discuss Mr. Brendan Paul right now? Now, as you recall, Brendan Paul was one of Diddy's alleged DRUG runners, but he ended up getting off. How did he do it? We don't know. So after the judge asked that question, prosecutor says better tomorrow morning. Judge says the special agent will be on all day. Prosecutor says even until tomorrow, then Mr. Paul, then a final summary witness. Judge says what witness would the defense be putting on Friday? 3 witnesses, Vashta Wilson, Stephen Lynn, and a paralegal in our office. Prosecutor says we don't have any of those charts yet. Judge says in terms of defense expert, I'd like the Daubert issues teed up. Now, when he says Daubert issues, he's speaking of legal challenges about whether an expert witness's testimony is reliable and allowed in court. We'll work on it, says prosecution. Shapiro says we'll be providing the government with a supplemental response to Dr. Hughes' actual testimony. Diddy's lawyer Shapiro continues saying this special agent has no personal knowledge. She is just connecting lifting up exhibits and asking the jurors to interpret them. This is not appropriate for a summary witness. It's just hotel records and flight records. Comey with the prosecution says Mr. Combs and Jules Theodore were discussing being in the same place at the same time. If this objection is sustained, we'll just have the special agent read every text message. Judge says this witness has no personal knowledge. She put together charts. So now they're officially on break, but at 1:56, the break is over and the trial is restarting. All rise. The jury enters. Ms. Johnson, the judge says, you may proceed. So the jury was shown a travel invoice sent to Bad Boy Entertainment for a flight for Cassie Ventura from LA to NYC on October 10th, 2012. Special Agent Penland then read some messages between Ventura and Sean Diddy Combs on October 13th, 2012. You ready for the night? Combs asked her. Ventura responded, yes, but need to go get some things. Combs said, man, you had all day. It's always something. The jury then saw messages from Ventura sent separately to two men discussing times to meet and giving them information for a hotel room in New York. The invoice for that hotel room was reserved under the name Janet Clark and paid for in cash. One of the men texted Ventura in the early morning hours of October 14th, indicating he was in another room. The jury also saw the invoice for that room, which was reserved under the name Frank Black and paid for both in cash and with an American Express card. Several videos recorded on October 14th were recovered from one of Ventura's devices, and the jury watched some of the videos, but the public was not able to see them. Prosecutor Johnson says, Special Agent, have you reviewed American Express records? I have, said Special Agent. This was an American Express purchase for a flight for Cassie Ventura from Miami. Here was a charge from the London hotel to this American Express account, said Special Agent. Whose American Express account? Sean Combs paid with an account at Signature Bank. Can you read this? Yes, it's the Trump in Columbus Circle. I'm heading there now. Can you contact the front desk and get the PORN channel unlocked? What does Ms. Ventura say? Just called them. The jury continued to see exchanges of Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura setting up a freak-off, now with 4 men in January 2013, to celebrate Christmas. Combs texts Ventura, want to celebrate Christmas and have a freak-off tomorrow or Friday? Ventura texts with the men who run an escort service to arrange for one escort and personally texts with the others to set up staggering arrival times on January 11th and January 12th, 2013. One of the escorts texts Ventura, hello, Star, this is Santiago. I hope we can do another voyeur encounter again, and I really want to do this again with you guys. Who's in these communications? Cassandra Ventura and NY Punish, aka Sheree Hayes. What is it about? Because in this video, judge says, Ms. Johnson, we're not seeing it. Ms. Johnson says, play from 10 minutes, 30 seconds to 11 minutes. Okay, Special Agent Penland, I want to direct your attention to line number 23. I will read Mr. Combs and you will read Ms. Ventura. Combs says, you horny? Would you want to have a freak out? Cassie says, call Jules. Can you send me the hotel info? About to smoke. What are you doing? Combs says, what's up? Cassie says, I asked him to drive around and we will hit him when we want him to come up. Diddy continues, I'm a bit more sexually excited than last time. Dress casually and bring baby oil. Cassie said, casual, yes. Baby oil, no. Prosecution as Johnny LA Strip. On my way to the L'Hermitage. Agent as Cassie says, do you mind driving around until I tell you? Prosecution says, we could break here. Judge says, let me see counsel at the sidebar. They have a sidebar. Judge says, jurors, you may leave for the day. All rise. So the prosecution is using Diddy's alleged freak-offs or his wild nights involving escorts, SEX parties, and women like Cassie and Jane to support the Rico charges by painting them as part of a larger criminal enterprise. Now, under the Rico Act, the government isn't just trying to prove that Diddy did bad things here and there. They're arguing that he ran or was part of an organized operation that repeatedly committed crimes for personal or financial gain over time. They're framing these parties not as random moments of indulgence, but as calculated events involving recruiting, transporting, and paying women, sometimes through coercion or manipulation. The prosecution claims this behavior was systemic, the same type of parties with the same pattern of control, featuring women that he was dating and the male escorts flown in or brought across state lines, often involving DRUGS, alcohol, and sometimes violence or intimidation that turns private misbehavior into something far more serious a potential SDX trafficking
Cotton Club
conspiracy. To strengthen
conversation.
the
Hello.
Rico claims, prosecutors are introducing a paper trail, payments to escorts, flight itineraries, hotel bookings, and communications that show coordination. They're suggesting Diddy didn't act alone, that he had staff or associates helping to arrange and cover up these events, which make it an enterprise rather than isolated acts. Women like Cassie and Jane are key because their stories show a pattern. If multiple victims describe nearly identical experiences being coerced, controlled, or used at the freak-offs, it helps prosecutors argue that this was not accidental or isolated, but part of an ongoing operation that qualifies under RICO. Finally, DOJ employees like Special Agent Delicia Penland are testifying about this paper and money trail connecting dates, locations, and payments. Now, these details are meant to back up the idea that these freak-offs were planned events that support the broader criminal goal of the alleged enterprise. In short, the prosecution is using these events to argue that Diddy wasn't just wild, he was running something organized, exploitive, and criminal. So what I need to do is hear from you. What do you think about everything currently going on in the world of Diddy?
Okay, what we got next? What we got next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Let's go to our girl. Let me see. I need to do her charges looming. Let me see what her.
It got stuck in the branch that it was growing on, and then
Kanye is supporting Diddy because he's literally scared that he's about to be charged just like Diddy. We're all pretty sure that Kanye is probably the celebrity that Jane talked about having a freak-off in that hotel who the feds didn't want to name on the public record. And this part of not having Kanye named did pique my interest a little bit because we've seen plenty of celebrities' names throughout this trial, whether they were connected to Diddy or not. Like Diddy's former assistant Mia naming that she used to work for Mike Myers. Like Michael B. Jordan's name coming up in Cassie's testimony. Really started to pique my interest. Why wouldn't the feds want to name Kanye? Like, what's the big deal? We've seen other celebrities named throughout this. And then it all just came together for me. I think that Kanye might be facing his own criminal charges really soon, and I think he knows it. And it all begins with a lawsuit filed against Kanye by his former assistant, Lauren Piscata. Because throughout this lawsuit, she is alleging very damning allegations like trafficking, like transportation to engage in prostitution. And mind you, this is exactly how the investigation into Diddy started with Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, where she alleged trafficking. And I'm about to cook on some of the things she alleges so you guys can see it in real time because it's crazy. So let's get into it. One of the many things that Lauren alleges in this lawsuit is that Kanye would hire women to work at Yeezy LLC, and he would arrange for a thing called dates, but it was to have physical relations with these women. And she even alleged that some of these women were hired from foreign countries. One of the biggest things that you need in a federal case because it affects interstate commerce. She went on to allege that Kanye called upon his lawyers and his team to prepare specialized NDAs for the particular circumstances of these dates with physical relations with these employees. The NDAs were meant to be signed before Kanye West went on these dates and had physical relationships with these women. He alleged that Kanye took steps to keep the victims of his trafficking and exploitation quiet by the use of these NDAs, money, employment, and promises of future employment. He said on June 14th of 2022, Kanye West sent her a series of texts which he boasted about and shared photos of a specific woman that he was giving as a gift to his friend. She alleged that Kanye's exact wording in this text message was that this woman was a gift straight from Russia that he was giving to his friend, which she references once again as trafficking these women. Then she went on to claim that Kanye trafficked more than just employees that he would hire to work at Yeezy. She alleged that Kanye would give these women lavish gifts and wire them money to cover their living arrangements. gifts. She included that some of these gifts included Birkin bags, expensive cars, luxury watches, and they were paid for from the funds from Yeezy's bank account. One time, there was a woman coming from New York on a flight that was paid for by Kanye to have physical relations with him. She alleged approximately 7 hours before Kanye West was expected to meet with this woman that he was allegedly trafficking from New York for physical relations, he sent Lauren a text. And it said to put $50K in somebody's bank account and in another name. Lauren claimed right after she got this text from Kanye, she immediately made Kanye's accountant aware of his request, so the accountant did exactly as she was told and added those 2 wires of $50,000 for each woman that defendant Kanye named in the list of his demands. In February of 2022, at the Soho Warehouse, which is a club in LA, Kanye told an A-list celebrity that he was going to gift her to this A-list celebrity. Kanye told this A-list celebrity that she had a great body, insinuating that he had previously slept with her before. This A-list celebrity came to her and told her that Kanye offered her as a gift for physical relations. Went on to allege that Kanye would host these group physical relation parties at various luxury hotels. Claims that Kanye would frequently come up with stories and schemes to lure her and other women to these locations. Kanye would reach out under the guise of needing something specific, typically honey, and that she hand deliver it to him. And yes, we're talking about the same honey that Diddy was caught with that gives you better enhancement. She claimed that Kanye admitted in a text message that he had a premeditated plan to lure her to his hotel under false pretenses to have an opportunity to take advantage of her, exposing her to that environment in hopes of involving her in this big group physical party. She alleged that one time Kim Kardashian thought that Lauren and Kanye were hooking up because she was Kanye's assistant, and she said that she wanted to send a text to Kim letting her know nothing had ever happened between the two of them. She claimed that once she told Kanye that she wanted to let Kim Kardashian know this, Kanye then allegedly said, well, we did kind of hook up a little one time. She alleged that he started to bring up the incident that happened in that recording studio with Nikki Heaton and Diddy's, where it gets a little crazy. I'm sure you guys remember Nikki Heaton, who came out very publicly and said that she was invited to a recording studio by Kanye, and Diddy was also there. This was years before Lauren became Kanye's assistant, but Lauren was Nikki Heaton's manager, and she was also there this night. Nikki alleged that she had a gut feeling when she arrived at the studio that something was off. She said that they were given drinks, and then Lauren was drinking the drink, and she started to notice that she wasn't acting right, and she automatically started to realize that something was in this drink, that this is not how Lauren would typically act. And then she claimed that Lauren would end up going to the bathroom, and she was left alone with Kanye and Diddy in this recording studio. And she alleged that they started approaching her and then were trying to rip her clothes off. She said that she was begging for help from a music executive, Kanye's cousin, and somebody else in the room, and they literally just turned around and acted like they didn't see anything. Then she said that she was able to run out the recording studio door after a while, and she went and hid and started crying. But at the end of the video, she claimed that she saw something happening to Lauren, and she said that she was gone, and the next morning she didn't even realize what had allegedly happened to her. Well, Lauren writes this in her lawsuit. She basically says during this point she started to panic because she never knew that she hooked up with Kanye, so she thought that she was SA'd because she doesn't remember this incident at all, and she felt like this is why Kanye years later came to her and wanted her to be his assistant, and later even promoted her to chief of staff. She believed that Kanye was obsessed with her, and this is why Kanye would not stop his advances towards her. And out of the many advances that she talks about, she named one that she's actually suing him for sexual harassment. She claims that Kanye was in a towel, dropped it, and then forced himself upon her. He was forcefully thrusting his body onto her and put his privates in her face. She said,
Kanye said Diddy taught him everything.
She was pleading for Kanye to stop, and then he would finally get up and say, I'm sorry. So yeah, a lot of the things alleged in this lawsuit are somewhat similar to Cassie Ventura's. And we have seen Kanye reference Lauren a lot when he was tweeting about Diddy. So I think this is exactly why we're seeing Kanye so outspoken when it comes to Diddy. Because I truly think he's worried that he might be under some type of investigation with the feds as well. But y'all let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments.
Yep. I remember that too. Let's see what this one is. Let's see what the next one is. Hold on. Hold your wig. Y'all hit the like button. I actually need 18 more likes. Did I watch this one? On the Edge? Yeah, we watched that one. Let me see. What messages between?
Off the case, week 6 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, starting off with quite the shakeup. The judge officially dismissing Juror 6 over what he says were inconsistencies in statements the juror made about where he lived. Sean Combs has denied all charges in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. If convicted, he faces life in prison. Let's bring in our legal contributor, Brian Buckmeyer. All right, what's the latest from the courtroom today, Brian?
So, Kara, we have the second witness of the day on the stand. Both of them are what's called summary witnesses. That's typically when there is such voluminous information that the party, this case the government, feels that a witness should be able to condense that into charts, graphs, visual aids. And that's what's happening here. We're seeing text messages about coordinating travel, hotel booking, as well as flight plans, and also talking about drugs. Don't forget distribution of drugs, as well as sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution are some of not only the predicate acts for the RICO charge, but also some of the other charges that Sean is facing. We're also hearing that Brendan Paul, a former Syracuse basketball player who was arrested March of 2024 and whose case was dismissed and had close ties with Sean as an assistant, is expected not to testify today, but tomorrow. Likely to testify.
Okay, bye.
He was associated with possession of cocaine and marijuana, and how that ties into Sean Combs.
Mervin.
We're also expecting the defense to start their case on Friday, already giving us at least 3 witnesses' names. One of them, the VP of Operations for Bad Boy Entertainments.
Lots to come. Brian Buckmeyer, glad we have you there. For more on the trial, you can also catch Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy. That's every night, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on ABC News Live. Also, check out Brian's podcast, Bad Rap, the case against Diddy. You can get that wherever you listen to your podcasts.
To paint an even darker picture of Sean Diddy Combs' inner circle. From escort logistics to alleged drug use, jurors will walk through a flood of messages that prosecutors say expose the operation behind the accusations. We're going to break it all down with Law and Crime's in-court reporter Elizabeth Milner right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. So recent allegations against the multi-billion-dollar video game industry claim that video games are engineered for addiction. The claim arrangements, disturbing behind-the-scenes behavior at the center of the government's case. So to give us that special inside look at what went down in today's proceedings, you know I'm going to bring in Law and Crime's in-court reporter Elizabeth Milner, who's been there for every step of the action. Elizabeth, so good to see you. So before we get into the testimony, we got to talk about this drama with a juror, juror number 6, dismissed. What happened?
So it didn't necessarily come as a surprise that this particular juror, that being juror number 6, was dismissed. I think the judge was kind of signaling that this but that this specific juror was going to be dismissed, kind of hinting about this on Friday. But then he took into consideration what the defense had to say, as they made really an impassioned speech about why this particular juror should stay. But as far as what the judge said,
lifestyles of the rich and famous.
You know, I understand it's important, but this amount of scrutiny is not necessary. And I think it kind of had to do with just the letter that the defense had, just kind of accusing the prosecution of dismissing this particular juror mainly based off race and just other accusations from the defense to the government. And so as far as what the judge said, he said the inconsistencies from this specific juror raised a lot of issues, and pretty much these inconsistencies were just about where this particular juror lived. So he was registered in Bronx County. The call to serve on this jury from Bronx County. However, there was this kind of
Off the case, week 6 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial.
Out of jest from this particular juror, where just he had mentioned something along the lines of, oh, the traffic from New Jersey is crazy, or oh, I just had to travel all the way down from New Jersey, which kind of signaled to other staffers, okay, what's going on here, given that you're a juror from Bronx County, or specifically from the Bronx. And so what ended up happening is the judge brought this particular juror back in the robing room or judge's chambers and spoke to this juror just about what was really happening, and spoke to him about a couple of times here. So it wasn't just a one and done type of situation, Jesse. It was something that had been mulling over for a couple of days. And so the judge ended up going back and looking at the record pretty closely. So he reviewed the transcript from the robing room, but also he went back even further and looked at just some of the questions and answers from the jury selection process. So the judge said that there were inconsistencies, and clear inconsistencies from voir dire, which is jury selection, and the robing room conversations. And the judge had serious concerns about this particular juror's candor and how the juror might have just kind of skewed his answers during the jury selection process, and even when he was having these discussions with the judge too in the robing room, and how he might have skewed his answers in order to just stay on the jury. And so the judge said this is threatening the integrity of the jury process. So the defense brought up that the juror will be placed by a white juror, and the defense was kind of really adamant that they just did not want this particular juror dismissed. And so the court took the weekend to look at the defense's argument and everything they had to say, and they didn't believe, they being the court, didn't believe that further inquiry of this jury is appropriate, and they actually said that further inquiry would be inappropriate. And so the judge said that there is nothing that the juror could say that would put the genie back in the bottle. He said this is why we have alternate jurors, precisely for this particular situation. And so the defense did ask the court to not make this decision based off race, but the court should and cannot let race be a factor. The judge saying that there was no evidence even of prosecutorial misconduct, and there was zero evidence of that too. So what ended up happening is that juror number 6 was dismissed from the case. So the jury box looks just a little bit differently going forward now, as a lot of the jurors, especially starting kind of in the back row, shifted just one seat over to, I guess, the left of the jury box. And so now we see one of the alternates becoming now an official juror. Well, they've always been a juror, right? But now they're officially going to be on the kind of jury pool to be deliberating. And so a lot of stuff happened just this morning, but I think, you know, the writing was on the wall that the judge was ultimately leaning toward dismissing juror number 6.
And you make a good point for everybody out there. It's not like this alternate juror has been in a locked room for the past 6
they've been
weeks.
there.
They've been hearing all the same testimony as the seated jurors. Now they just will become a part of the actual deliberation process. Elizabeth, real quick, was there some issue with another juror too, but we don't have a lot of information about what's going on with that?
Yeah, so what we did learn is that the issues concerning these 2 jurors really have nothing to do with one another, but we did kind of learn a little bit possibly more information, and that was from TMZ. So shout out to Brian Andrews and the TMZ team, because we did kind of learn that I guess this other issue with another juror had to do with a text message they received from somebody. It was from an unknown sender asking if this person was the juror that was going to be dismissed. And so there was no conversations that were had outside the presence of the jury today as far as even types of decisions about whether this particular juror who got the message, because the big thing is they're not supposed to be talking about this case outside, but then there's also the issue this jury isn't sequestered. So I'm always kind of curious too whether or not they're getting a lot of information. The judge, you know, before they're dismissed for the weekend, or even at the end of the day, is like, don't talk about this case with anyone, turn off your notifications.
He absolutely
if you see an article about this case, turn it off. You know, go outside, those types of things. And so from right now, what we know is that there hasn't been any type of action taken on this particular juror, but the juror did feel a type of way and letting the court know that they did receive this type of message. But as far as any action, as far as dismissing the juror or questioning this juror even further, nothing has been taken today.
And I'll tell you, when we do the lunchtime show on Law and Crime's YouTube channel, I can't tell you how many questions we get was it a mistake to not sequester this jury? How can we ensure?
Yeah, I think they should have sequestered them.
I mean, at the end of the day, they should not know who you are, Elizabeth. The person who's the face of Law and Crime's coverage of this, they should not know who you are. They should not know who I am. And if they do, it's a problem. Okay. So we move past the juror issue. Now we go into summary witnesses. Summary witness is very interesting in a case like this. Basically, when you have a voluminous amount of material, particularly digital evidence, you need sometimes a witness to kind of condense it, to kind of do an overview, to summarize what it's about. You know, you have charts that are presented by the government. So obviously in a racketeering case like this, and particularly when you have so many different players and all these underlying allegations, I'm not surprised. I want to talk about the first witness, this first summary witness. It was a paralegal.
Hold on. Just in case.
So we are not using.
Just
it is
in
day
case my
24 of the Diddy trial, and I am
battery
late
about
giving you
to go
guys
out.
the afternoon transcripts. I'm so sorry. I'm not even going to do an intro. My daughter was sick, and so I had to deal with that today. So I'm sorry it's late, but I still have it coming out for if you
I need
haven't caught
8
up
more
on the
lights.
transcript. So we are not using Matthew Russell Lee because from Inner City Press, because earlier I used her because his feed cut off. So we're going to be using this person. This is P. Diddy trial updates. This is Jewel Manzi. So shout out to this person. Shout out to her for taking these transcripts. Make sure you guys show her some love. Okay, so where we left off in the morning, I just want to make sure I have the right one. Yeah, there we go. This was Anaya Sanker. Now, she left the stand, and she's basically a paralegal who is doing a legal summary of the case. It's a whole thing. Maybe I'll explain it in a recap. But so they finished with her. She got off the stand, and then they called Delisa Pennant. Okay, so this is another summary witness that takes us.
Sorry. Get my lights up. Hi, Tracy.
The other one, Sanker, was a summary witness as well. Delisa Penland is a special agent with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. She will be reviewing charts and data to verify their accuracy. Some charts presented focus on certain meetings. One highlights a meeting at a hotel in London involving Combs, Cassie, and Jules Theodore. It also includes a list of flights taken by individuals involved, including Jules and Cassie. So Jules, I believe, is a male worker, okay, for the Freakoffs. All right, continuing. This is AUSA is always the prosecutor, the government, guys. All right. Ms. Penland, regarding the chart, objection, sidebar. Sidebar over. Ms. Johnson, you may proceed. Ms. Penland, when you say someone attended the meeting, are you basing that on available records rather than video evidence? Who are the participants in this chat? Jules and Sean Combs. Please read Jules' message aloud. I'm available Friday through Sunday. Whatever flights work. Which one? Friday at 4. So this is, you guys can read it. Okay, so they're reading the text messages aloud and playing the different parts. They do that a lot in this case. Where were the flights between Los Angeles and JFK in New York? Did document retention policies affect your ability to retrieve the records? Yes. I wasn't able to obtain those records due to retention limitations. Break. A lot of breaks. After the break, Delisa Penland will be on the stand for about 2 hours and might return tomorrow. Next will be Brendan Paul, Combs's former assistant and a law enforcement agent before the prosecution rests on Wednesday. Defense will be calling 3 witnesses this week. They're back. Penland is on the stand. The jury is now also back in. Ms. Johnson, you may proceed. Ms. Penland, did you review American Express records as part of your analysis? I did. This particular charge was for a flight from Miami, booked for Cassandra Ventura. And here is a charge from the London hotel, billed to the same American Express account. Whose American Express account was that? It belonged to Sean Combs. The payment was made using an account at Signature Bank. Can you read this message aloud? It says, it's the Trump in Columbus Circle. I'm heading there now. Can you contact the front desk and get the porn channel unlocked? Wow. Okay. And what does Ms. Ventura respond? Penland as Cassie just called them. Ms. Penland, who are the individuals in these communications? Cassandra Ventura and someone identified as New York Punish. That's the Punisher, I believe, is another male escort. Also known as Sheree Hayes. He's the one that wrote the 5-page book about male, can't get hard. So it's called Freezer Meat. That is the name of his 5-page ebook that you can download, and it's available. Okay. And what are they discussing? We're talking about, erectile dysfunction. That's what it is. Okay. That. They're talking about the cost. And then in this next part, they're referencing videos. Your Honor, may we have the public and press screen turned off? The request is approved. Ms. Penland, what was the date of the flight in the invoice shown to the jury? October 10th, 2012. A flight booked for Ms. Ventura from Los Angeles to New York City, billed to Bad Boy Entertainment. Let's move to the messages between Ms. Ventura and Mr. Combs from October 13th. Can you read them? You ready for tonight? Yes, but I need to get something. Man, you had all day. All day. It's always something. Jury is shown messages Ventura sent separately to 2 men discussing times to meet and giving them information for a hotel room in New York. Was anything notable about the hotel booking? Yes, the room was reserved under the name Janet Clark, paid for in cash. And there was another room? Yes. Early in the morning of October 14th, one of the men texted Miss Ventura that he was in a different room. The second room was booked under the name Frank Black and was paid for using both cash and an American Express card. Frank Black is the pseudonym that Diddy would use for these Freakoff hotels when he would be booked there.
At Sweet Bee Organics, we believe in the power of nature's ingredients to nurture your body and soul. Unlike conventional products filled with synthetic additives and questionable ingredients, our products are crafted with organic, whole ingredients that work in harmony with your body. From skincare to supplements, each product in our range is meticulously formulated to deliver optimal results without compromising on purity or quality.
All right. Some videos are shown to the jury, but not to the public. Ms. Johnson, we're not seeing the footage on our end. Let's start playback from the 10:30 to 11-minute mark. Thank you. Now, Ms. Penland, please look at line 23 in the transcript. I'll read Mr. Combs' messages. Please read Ms. Ventura's. Oh, wow. You feeling horny? Want to have a little fun? Should I call Jules? Can you send the hotel details? I'm about to smoke. What are you up to? What's going on? I asked him to drive around. We'll let him know when we're ready for him to come up. I'm a bit more excited than last time. Dress casually. And can you bring baby oil? Casual is fine, but no baby oil. On my way to L'Hermitage. Would you mind driving around until I say when to come up? We could break here. Let me see counsel at the sidebar. After the sidebar, jurors, you may leave for the day. All rise. Judge Sabramian to update the attorneys tomorrow on the specific information which will be told to the rest of the jurors about juror number 6. This was at the request of Alexandra Shapiro, so that is the defense. They wanted to keep this juror, but the prosecution wanted him off. He's now off. I gave you guys that update. And now another juror may be kicked off of the case. Okay, I'm just making sure there's no more updates. So there wasn't much said, but I wanted to go ahead and give you guys and be consistent with giving you this information. I think the next time we'll get like big information is going to be from Brendan Paul. Now, he was the guy that is allegedly Diddy's drug mule. Remember the raids that happened? Okay, he had the raid in Miami and he had that raid in Los Angeles at his homes. But you guys also remember the plane? Okay, so Diddy had a plane that he rented and he also has his own plane. So at that time, people were looking for Diddy. They were tracking his plane out of the country and back and forth. But then the HSI, or a part of the government, I don't know if it's HSI or which department, but I think it's them because they're the ones that did the raid. They ended up going to the plane, and at that time, they found Brendan Paul and several other people trying to get on Diddy's plane to leave the country. Brendan Paul was arrested, and he was found with drugs on him, okay? And so, and allegedly he would curry the drugs for Diddy even out of the country, All right, so which is a big deal. So he is now, once he was arrested, he is now turned as a witness for the government, a witness for the prosecution. So there's a lot of details that he.
Did y'all hear that? When she said that they would have been tracking his plane in Florida. There we go, Florida, Miami.
And allegedly he would curry the drugs for Diddy even out of the country. All right, so which is a big deal. So he is now, once he was arrested, he is now turned as a witness for the government, a witness for the prosecution. So there's a lot of details that he can add in about the whole drug arm of this, which could really land Diddy in the government. I don't know if it's HSI or which department, but okay, so Diddy had a plane that he rented, and he also, remember the raids that happened? Okay, he had the raid in Miami, and he had that raid in Los Angeles at his homes.
They haven't even tried it there
remember
yet.
The plane? Okay, so Diddy had a plane that he rented, and he also has his own plane. So at that time, people were looking for Diddy. They were tracking his plane out of the country and back and forth.
They was tracking him.
The HSI, or a part of the government, I don't know if it's HSI or which department, but I think it's them because they're the ones that did the raid. They ended up going to the plane, and at that time they found Brendan Paul and several other people trying to get on Diddy's plane to leave the country. Brendan Paul was arrested, and he was found with drugs on him, okay? And so, and allegedly he would curry the drugs for Diddy even out of the country. All right, so which is a big deal. So he is now, once he was arrested, he is now turned as a witness for the government, a witness for the prosecution. So there's a lot of details that he can add in about the whole drug arm of this, which could really land Diddy in a lot of hot water or really seal the deal when it comes to this Rico case. I don't know, but we'll see. But the good news is they are wrapping up by Wednesday, the prosecution. Okay, so then it would be the defense's turn to call their witnesses and their evidence and bring that forth and fight, bring their case to defend Diddy. So we could possibly have Diddy on the stand this week, guys. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, because I will be glued to my chair all day for that and giving you guys all those details. Sorry if you hear a little screaming right now. There's a baby that's making noise. But anyway, guys, make sure you're subscribed. Like I told you earlier, I'm trying to get those transcripts to put on my.
They was tracking his plane. The mule. Yeah, you talking about the mule. Ain't no telling what he said Diddy was saying the day that he got arrested that making him say, oh no. What y'all need to know?
To kind of condense it, to kind of do an overview, to summarize what it's about. You have charts that are presented by the government. So obviously in a racketeering case like this, and particularly when you have so many different players and all these underlying allegations, I'm not surprised. I want to talk about the first witness, this first summary witness. It was a paralegal, and her name is, and correct me if I mispronounce it, Anya Sanker. What was her role?
Yeah, so Anyanya Sanker, I hope I'm pronouncing it right too, Jesse. So her role essentially was just reviewing two of the charts that were in this case, and those being the summary charts. And so she said that the government prepared the charts, but then Sankar's role was just reviewing these charts for accuracy. And so she reviewed text messages, documents, audio messages, audio files, which are completely different, and then just other things like that. And so we saw exhibits of, text message timelines, but these ones were specifically from a person that's been brought up a number of times in this trial. However, we haven't heard from this person or directly from her mouth, and that obviously being Christina Quorum. And so what we did learn is just about, the messages that were sent on her device, the device that was obtained by HSI during the raid. And so there were just a number of text messages from Christina Quorum to Dave Shirley, an assistant, and then just some other messages too, including messages to Jane, messages to Cassie, messages to Sean Combs, aka Diddy, aka PD, as some messages call him himself. And so what we were able to see from this particular chart was dates and times, the record type, from whoever the sender was, and then to whoever the sender was sending that to, the content file name, and then the source of it all, which is essentially just where the government exhibit is. So that way, whenever the jury goes back to deliberate, they're able to kind of easily find everything because everything's all summed up into one chart. But we saw kind of records from The earliest time frame being March 18th of 2016 to February 26th of 2024. And I thought those dates were pretty interesting because if you think about it, you know, February 26th of 2024 being kind of the last record that they have, I thought was like, oh, okay, because given that the raids happened in March and then Diddy's arrest didn't happen until September, I thought the dates would be a little more current than they actually were. And even going back to March 18th of 2016, that being the earliest of these particular records, that was years into Christina Quorum's role already as Diddy's kind of head assistant. And so what we did end up seeing is just some text messages. So we did see one message, this being December 29th of 2019, and it was a message from Ryan Lopez to Christina Quorum, Ryan Lopez being one of the assistants, and he said, you know, LOL, think I saw one of the cowboys. You can spot them in the lobby like an escort. I forgot to tell you about it. Then Christina Quorum writes to Ryan Lopez laughing emoji. By the way, how long is
for an extra hour? Now, a couple of things happened. You guys know what happened about juror number 6. The judge said that no, he was untruthful. There were omissions. You cannot have that in a court of law. However, as I'm sure you've heard, okay, and I got a lot of notes, Xavier Donaldson, I believe, stood up and made an impassioned plea about the way the Southern District of New York, it's the Bronx, all the juries are usually all white. We cannot just exclude and let jurors go without giving him a chance to explain. He thought he should have been brought in, juror number 6, and explain, because if juror number 6 goes, right, you have to look at the jurors. I thought they just pick one randomly, but a person moves over one, right? And if you move over one, that means he will be replaced by an older white gentleman. Xavier Donaldson said we need to look at the optics, okay? But you guys, I said, so here's the thing. The judge kicked everybody out the chambers. It was so dramatic. I waited. They started talking about the evidentiary chart, the summaries, all this like legal paperwork. And I stayed there for an extra hour. Why? Because I got some tea. Y'all, remember when we told you guys that Brendan Paul had flipped on Diddy and everybody was like, Tisa, what are you talking about? Tisa, what are you talking about? Do you not know that he just got, it was his first offense, so he got a rehab disposition program? And I said, I don't care what y'all say. I know what a flip looks like when I see one. Well, guess what? So does the federal government. Brendan Paul, I was in the courtroom. I stayed an extra hour. He is confirmed to have flipped on Diddy, and he is testifying on behalf of the prosecution. And Knack, what's up? How y'all doing today? Listen, I was writing my notes down. I was doing everything. I just left the courthouse.
Y'all, I need 10 likes, or I'm finna shut it down.
And you gotta get off
and I mean, I need them quick.
I had to run home because they were like, yeah, you can't go live on the property. I heard it with my own ears. Brendan Paul, Diddy's rug mule, is confirmed. I repeat, confirmed to be a surprise witness. And he is testifying next week. I have the exact...
Oh, okay. So that's... Oh, okay.
What's about what happened. I just left the courtroom. The judge extended the court for an extra hour. Now, a couple of things happened. You guys know what happened about juror number 6. The judge said that, no, he was untruthful. There were omissions. You cannot have that in a court of law. However, as I'm sure you've heard, okay?
Hold on.
And I got a lot of notes. Xavier Donaldson, I believe, stood up and made an impassioned plea about the way the Southern District of New York, it's the Bronx.
I'm trying to manipulate. Oh, they kill me. Oh.
Look back at what has now been another week of testimony in the books, and so now we're starting a new one. Sean Diddy Combs, the trial continues, and we know that judge today holding firm on his decision to dismiss juror number 6 over conflicting answers about where he lives. The move comes after protests from Combs' lawyers who wanted to keep the juror, who is black, arguing removing him would actually disrupt the diversity of the jury, to replace him with a white juror who is from Westchester County. In just a minute, we're going to be joined by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona to dig deeper into everything that happened in court today and what it all means. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
Monday morning, federal prosecutors working to close the loop in the sex trafficking and racketeering case of Sean Diddy Combs, presenting dozens of text messages and receipts they believe will prove their case. A paralegal for the government reading text messages recovered from a phone belonging to Combs' chief of staff, Christina Coram. An exchange with Cassie Ventura from April 2018 reads, "Hey, I'm sorry about last night. I can't do the violence. Scary kicked me out of my own house stuff anymore. I got Carrie and bounced." Coram responding, "Are you okay? I don't even know what to say, but I'm here if you need anything." Ventura responding, "I'm okay, just bummed." Coram texting back, "I'm sure. Stay focused though. It's not worth derailing. That much I know." Another text from March 2022 about picking up drugs for Combs at his LA house, asking Jane, "Hey, per PD, can you swing by Mapleton on your way to the airport to pick up a G package?" While Coram has not been indicted and is not on the government's witness list, prosecutors have been building their conspiracy case
I need
surrounding
7
her
likes.
actions, also showing jurors this text exchange with Combs after Ventura filed a civil suit in November 2023, telling
Miss C.
Combs, "If you cannot be honest with me, this doesn't work.
It's in the
We all know
title.
what your kryptonite is and where you don't make the
Tia.
best choices." Combs responding, "Come take my phone." In part, Coram responds, "Has nothing to do with taking your phone. If you're starting to
Caroline.
lie about anything to me, I'm just
Caroline.
saying that will break me." Today, jurors seeing other text messages about Combs' drug purchases. In November 2022, writing, "Molly, 15 pills. Don't text, think." In an April 2023 text from a security guard that says, "Same vendor from above. An additional 1,800 has been approved." And jurors watched 1-minute clips from 3 different Freakoff videos and saw actual dollar amounts Combs paid to transport escorts over state lines. But before testimony started today, juror number 6 dismissed after finding out the 41-year-old black male actually lives in New Jersey and replaced with an alternate, a 57-year-old white male from Westchester.
Our thanks to Gerald Miles, as always, joined now by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona. Great to see you. So we're starting another week. First off, let's talk about this juror. Because when we left off last week, we thought that we knew that the judge was going to sort of look over everything over the weekend. What ultimately was the problem and what happens now?
So the judge had great concern as to this juror's candor, meaning that he wasn't being upfront as to a basic question as to where do you reside and who do you reside with. And that gave great pause and hesitation to the judge, because the judge is like, well, if you can't get a consistent answer, an upfront answer as to something that is so basic and that's key to your qualification to be a juror, then it leads me to believe that you had a motive to try to get on this jury. And that is quite possible. I don't know what you're going to do when it comes to deliberation. Are you going to follow the law? Are you going to apply the facts fair and impartially? So in order to keep the integrity of the process, the judge was like, I'm going to use my discretion, and he has a discretion alone, doesn't need the consent of either party to actually excuse this juror and replace them with an alternate. So this changes the dynamics of the jury, because as the defense stated, by excusing this juror, an African-American juror, now you're changing the diversity dynamics of the jury. That juror was replaced by a Caucasian male from upstate. Here you had the African-American male in his 40s from the Bronx and actually has some insight as to the hip-hop industry, and it changes the conversation when it comes to deliberation. So a lot changes with replacing a juror, but in the end, the judge didn't want to take any chances.
Also important to point out, we don't know how they will view the case.
Exactly.
And that's the thing with the judge and with the attorneys too. You don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. But one thing about this juror number 6, is that throughout the trial, because I've been in the courtroom pretty much every day of this trial, with the exception of, I believe, just 1 or 2 days, and that with this juror, in the beginning of the case, he was taking a lot of notes, but towards the last few weeks or so, anything that was pro Sean Combs, he would start taking notes. But in terms of the other testimony, he stopped taking notes and he started making facial expressions that kind of led you to believe that he may be siding with the defense at this point. But again, you don't know. We're just reading body language.
And certainly once they get in the room and they all are able to talk, things could happen.
And that's the first time. Remember, it's not until the judge gives them the jury instruction and tells the jury of 12, like, now you are allowed to speak amongst each other and deliberate on this case.
All right, let's talk about the moment where the jury, for the first time, were able to view portions of these so-called freak-offs,
Yes.
these sexual sessions. Take me into the courtroom.
First, we offer overnight boarding. Your pet will stay overnight in your sitter's home and not only be treated like part of the family, but treated like a king or queen honey. Next, we have house sitting. Your sitter takes care of your pet and your home. What's better than that? Next up, dog walking. If you're busy and your pup needs to burn some energy, Rover is the way to go. Then we have doggy daycare. Your dog spends...
How did that play out, and what was the reaction from the jurors?
So the prosecution called 2 witnesses today. The first witness was a paralegal specialist who brought in several summary charts about text messages, about times and dates of calls and invoices and different paperwork. But it was more of the second witness. The second witness was a special agent. And that second witness actually had different recordings, and 2 of those recordings were actual freak-offs. And that was part of their summary chart. So the prosecution for the first time played this for the jury. But before they played it for the jury, they made sure that each of the jurors, as well as the defense and the judge and the witness, had headphones, so that way the audience, like myself, wouldn't have been able to hear or see the video that was being played in the screens of these jurors. But they were watching, I believe, maybe the first minute out of a 39-minute freak-off video. And when they were watching it, they weren't making much facial expressions at all. But then again, I'm thinking, well, you just lost a juror, so now they're more cautious about any type of expressions that they can make. But they were watching the video, and just remember that this video and all of the exhibits that were given to them, they will have access, unlimited access to those when they are deliberating.
So they, in the jury room, could view all of the evidence?
Yes.
What is the point of the prosecution to pick out certain parts or just a few moments of the video?
So in terms of a few moments, just to show them, to give them a glimpse of the video, because they did tell the jury that this specific video was, I believe, 39 minutes and a few seconds long. It's just to give them some insight as to, look, corroboration that there was a freak-off, that this victim, whether it's Cassie or whether it was Jane, was involved in a freak-off with a male escort, one that's been named, or you saw a photograph, or that escort actually testified. So corroboration, because you don't have to now just take the word of Cassie or Jane. Now you have a video that you can see for yourself that, look, oh, this actually did happen, and I don't have to figure out whether there was a freak-off or not.
Let's discuss the text messages that we heard in Darla's summary there of what happened today with the woman known as KK.
Yes.
Which was, or perhaps still is, Sean Diddy Combs' right-hand person, if you will. Very close, chief of staff, but it seemed like so much more than that.
Look, Mike, KK knows all the dirt.
And that's...
KK knows where the bodies are buried. So let's be clear about that, because KK, one thing about the prosecution is that even though they have not called KK to the stand, you've heard so much about this woman. There's a photograph of this woman and evidence, so the jury can picture who she is. Her cell phone was recovered and it was searched. So a lot of the evidence having to deal with text messages and voice recordings and actually recordings of conversations were recovered from her cell phone. So even though she didn't testify, her cell phone information was entered into evidence, and you heard testimony from Jane and from Cassie about how KK was so instrumental in Sean Combs' camp. So while they didn't see her testify on the stand, they did hear a lot of her.
And what do we hear today?
So in terms of KK, whether she's going to testify or not, highly unlikely that she is going to testify, because the prosecution believes that they will rest on Wednesday. Today is Monday. They're calling summary witness. When you're thinking about a witness like KK, you know that's a witness that will last a few days, at least 2 days on the stand, and that's not what's happening with the timeline that they provided to the court and to the defense. I mean, the reality is, it's like, look, if KK were to testify, it changes the complete dynamics of this case. But just to be clear, she would be testifying either under a cooperation agreement, because the prosecution has stated that KK is a co-conspirator to Sean Combs. So either cooperation agreement or under immunity.
So why not force her to testify, though, if she's so integral to the case?
So it's many things could be happening. Just as a former prosecutor, in terms of a person like KK, you know that this person is exposed to criminal liability. you will have to offer them either complete immunity, where you're like, look, you can testify and I'm not going to prosecute you for anything with the exception of if you were to commit perjury on the stand. So that's one alternative, but you can still say, like, throw whatever you want at me, I'm not going to testify. Cooperation agreement, that's if KK is interested in a cooperation agreement. She will still have to agree to the terms of a cooperation agreement. It could be like, I've had witnesses when I was a prosecutor, or even as a defense attorney now, that I'm like, I don't care what you offer them, they are not going to testify for you, Ms. Prosecutor or Mr. Prosecutor. They rather take the jail time or take whatever alternative, or take their chances that you will prosecute them, as opposed to taking the stand and testifying against someone else.
In some of the text messages that we heard from today or read today, there was a fraying of the relationship between Sean Combs and KK at one point. What did we learn from those text messages today?
So you had ups and downs in their relationship, but in terms of Sean Combs and KK's relationship, so you could tell that after Cassie's lawsuit and also after the search warrant was executed at the Florida as well as the Los Angeles home, that KK may have been getting cold feet. And was noticing that, look, I may be exposed here. That's the inference that you can make from this. So I think she was at that point just trying to see how everything played out, but she did keep some distance away from Sean Combs to see how it plays out. And then ultimately, you know that a few months later in September, Sean Combs is arrested. So it's only but so much contact that you'll have with Sean Combs, because while he's in custody, KK's not an attorney, so all phone calls are being recorded, right? They're monitoring Sean Combs' interactions. So even if Sean Combs wanted to send a message, who would he send that message with? Because everything is recorded, with the exception if you send it with an attorney is not going to jeopardize their license over this.
So we're wrapping up this trial. You know, we're just in the final stages here, it seems like, because the prosecution's expected to rest on Wednesday. What more do we expect from their case?
So in terms of the prosecution has already started off with trying to tie everything up with a bow, right? So 2 summary witnesses today, and those summary witnesses were able to give this jury a breakdown of the racketeering conspiracy, the transportation to engage in prostitution. In terms of the racketeering conspiracy, they were dead set in highlighting the portions of the text messages, of the voice notes, of the audio recordings, of the flight records, of the hotel reservations, all made under this Combs enterprise. So the business and personal mixed, and that works for the prosecution, because it's like, wait, if you're using Combs enterprise for some of your personal benefits, then you're making that Combs enterprise a criminal enterprise. So they were able to highlight what portions were paid for these travel and these escorts and the personnel within your enterprise that you use to help facilitate these freak-offs in terms of booking the hotel rooms, of you using the security to reach out to witness, Mia here, so witness tampering. But they were able to highlight also drug possession and having the drugs move from California with Jane, with KK, making contact with Jane ultimately picking up those drugs and then bringing it to California. Again, possession with intent to distribute. So they were able to make out a lot of those racketeering activities by using these chart summaries and making it easy for this jury to be like, look, you don't have to look through thousands and thousands of pages of text messages. I'm pointing out to you in this summary the different text messages that inculpate Sean Combs and that make out these counts: racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, but most importantly also transportation to engage in prostitution. So I believe that the prosecution is going to call probably one more law enforcement witness on Wednesday, but also more importantly, we have one more civilian that's going to testify. Brendan Paul, Mike.
And who is that?
So Brendan Paul was the personal assistant or worked in the orbit of Sean Combs. Specifically, we don't know how intricate he was in working with Sean Combs, but what we do know is that March 2024, February 2024, sometime last year, that he was arrested while he was with Sean Combs, and in his possession were narcotics. So we all had that question back then, was like, oh, he has information on Sean Combs. He gets arrested with narcotics. Guess what they're going to do? The prosecution has leverage over him. So the question was whether he was going to flip and testify against Sean Combs. Where here we have it. Brennan Paul is going to be called by the prosecution to testify about Sean Combs. What I presume he's going to testify about is about providing drugs to Sean Combs, about these requests for the drugs for Sean Combs, possibly whatever engagement he had or interactions with Sean Combs' other employees, for example, KK, again tying in that enterprise. So Brennan Paul is about to spill whatever dirt he knows. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
We'll see what happens. Bernardo, always great to have your perspective. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Court resumes tomorrow morning, so stay with Eyewitness News and ABC7NY for all the new updates. We have a real-time blog, so you can follow along all the details coming out of court.
Discover your new Acura right now at J. Wolf Acura. Come lease a 2025 Acura ADX for $421 per month for 48 months. Now during Summer of Performance event. Visit us today at J. Wolf Acura.
Okay. If my lights go up, I got one more. I want to hear what she said, because I know this person do not. She's a defense litigator. Let's see what she has to say, and we out of here. Can't wait to see how the defense is going. Let me get this one set up. Hold on. Yeah, she's a defense litigator. She had to say. And I'm out of here. Y'all hit the like button.
And they sued his corporations and sued in her capacity as an employee. When you do that, it triggers commercial liability insurance. And it triggers another policy called directors and officers. Okay, and we know he's a director of these companies as the CEO. So now you got two policies. What happens then is it takes away Puffy's ability to settle. It's not his choice no more.
So it's no longer personal accountability. It's his organization.
It's his organization. And it's no different than like if you hit somebody with your car. Let's say you have State Farm. State Farm gets to decide to settle, not you. You could say, I didn't run the stop sign. That's not true. You're lying. State Farm says, we don't care. We did our investigation. We're settling.
That's it. That's what happened.
So because they added those claims, the corporate insurance carrier got to say, read over it and say, oh,
what do you mean, Dad? I don't know what you
We're hearing you.
Trying to figure out
Diddy's public reputation is done.
How they decide who to go
All right,
after.
guys, it's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. I am live from the courthouse.
Because they work for Diddy. What do you mean? They work for him.
It's raining, so y'all, I hope you
His
really feel
sister said
it's raining, and
when hiring,
I wanted
oh
to
my
be
God.
able to give you
She
this
said,
morning update,
this
y'all.
is his kingdom,
Rico is done.
and we are here
So
to
Rico
do whatever
has
he wants.
officially been
So they
proven.
go after
Let me
him
tell you, I don't know
because
what's
he
going on
is
with my
the
hair,
king.
but okay, who cares?
He's the
Who cares?
CEO, CFO. It's his
what has
corporation.
happened
It's his
is
enterprise.
expert that has taken
That's
the
why they
stand
go
today,
after
y'all.
Diddy.
The expert that's taken a stand has gotten up there and provided some serious RICO receipts. Now, number one, I want to start with letting you know the judge did officially, as I said on Friday, the judge officially got rid of juror number 6, the black male juror. He was from the Bronx. He actually was a corrections officer. So he was a corrections officer from the Bronx.
So he knew better.
The Diddy, Team Diddy was really wanted to keep him.
He should have known better.
They filed for a mistrial, claiming that number one, he should not have been dismissed, and number two, if he's dismissed, they wanted him to be replaced with a black guy. You can't do that. That's not how it works. There is an organization. There's a order of the alternates. So
I'm telling you, I see why people are locked up. They think how they feel and what they want is the law.
The judge said what they were asking him to do was basically use racism as an excuse to keep a juror, hit that like as you come on in, to keep a juror that appears to not have candor. Candor is being honest about the situation, because what happened was voir dire. Someone asked in a prior live, what's voir dire? That's just a process where jurors enter into, potential jurors come into the jury room, and lawyers from both sides get to ask them questions to make sure that they won't be biased. Where have I been? I've been in a courtroom, honey. Marcus happened in the courtroom. Y'all. So the other thing is, Brendan Paul is not taking the stand today. That's the drug mill. He's going to be there tomorrow because the lady with the receipts, with the Rico receipts, honey, is up there. It's a whole Rico party in there. Let me explain. So here's kind of the gist and the sexy parts of what we have learned this morning. Now, number one was back in March of 2024.
She was scaling me
that was
for
the
her to be
same
a
day
litigator.
that the government
She was acting like she couldn't
exercising
see
searches
the obvious.
of Diddy's different homes. The government also grounded his plane at the Opelika Airport in Florida, right, which is Miami area. When they did that, they seized Diddy's cell phone that were on him, and they seized not one, but two cell phones from KK. Honey, that's where all this tea is coming from.
KK.
So what happens when a government does, a legal search and seizure, which is what they did when they went on that plane, and they had search warrants. So they were able to take all the devices. Well, what happened is when they got her devices, hers and KK is Diddy's chief of staff and has been, goodness gracious, for many years, even back when Capricorn Clark was working for him.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is any and all evidence that was obtained.
Effective, healthy blood pressure support takes more than innovation. It takes vision. At Human...
Sorry, guys, I need to put on my do not disturb. Hold on. There we go. Let me know. I want to make sure you can still hear me. Hold on. Fix this audio. Wait. Okay, can you hear me still? Let me just make sure you can hear me because sometimes... Yes, hit that like as you join the chat, please, and thank you. There we go. Working. There we go. It should be good. Am I good? Yes. Okay, good. You should be able to hear me. Great. All right. So Rattan is saying, somebody was saying he's still going to walk probably. Wait. He said, yeah, Rafan Baird is like, he's still probably going to walk. Let me tell you, the way in which he could walk is if there's at least one juror that says, I don't care what the law is. I ain't voting
They can't do
guilty.
that.
Then he sure may be able to walk. Let me give you the rest of these facts. I'm going to walk you through it. And I promise this is going to be under 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to get there. My ADD is ADD. Rico was probably finally proven. That's right. I'm going to explain how we get there. Just give me a second, guys. I ain't even been a full 6 minutes. So what happened was KK, the chief of staff, had 2 cell phones that were seized. Diddy had cell phones that were seized. And what happens is when the government goes in and extracts those records, they then become evidence. And the government and Diddy's legal team do what's called a stipulation. What a stipulation does is says this is now indisputable evidence of whatever it says on this day. Same thing happens with subpoenas. In other words, that evidence is submitted to the court.
Who has 100 and some lawsuits
to prove up whatever it says on that document. So this morning, what happened was the government's summary witness, she was a paralegal for the U.S. government. She was reading into the record a bunch of text messages that were obtained from the seized
I told y'all a long time ago that I felt like that Jonathan Gotti guy
audio recordings. Here's some of the
who
highlights.
was talking about, I want to talk to the CIA, FBI, Secret Service about Diddy.
The drug distribution.
They did not believe him a long
they
time
provided
ago.
more than enough evidence of the substance distribution. Why? Child, the text message that were in there. Remember, these text messages are considered, how are the text messages being entered not considered hearsay?
Hey, Grateful.
Well, they're not hearsay because they were obtained, number one, in the course of business. They were obtained lawfully.
That's interesting, Christina
So
Estrada.
in the same way, like I represent clients in serious auto accidents, like $1 million Uber cases and stuff like that.
I would
if
think
you're in a
so.
car accident, medical records, right? Medical records are hearsay, generally, unless it falls into an exception. Well, because medical records are
put his hands on his mama like
records through the proper courses.
Gene
That is
Gene
why
said,
it's not hearsay.
I
Similarly, these text messages are not
he
hearsay.
has self-control
all text messages can't get in. No, it has to include either someone who's going to take the stand or a co-conspirator. You got to have one of the two. That's how
Diddy thought he was God.
Each of the
finding out
text
now he
messages
ain't.
that they're putting in either have a co-conspirator on it, or it includes Jane or Mia or Cassie or someone, hit that like, who's been on the stand. So excellent question, Angel. But that's why the text messages are not hearsay. Also, at the time that they were written, these are text messages like between KK and Diddy. At the time that they were written, they weren't trying to lie on anybody. They were literally conducting a business and conducting affairs. So let me give you an example of some additional juicy stuff from these text messages that goes towards proving the Rico. There was one, it was from KK to Cassie that said, hey, Dave, I guess it's one of the substance dealers. Dave's at your door with the green. Okay, that was like a little something. And then Diddy sends a text message to KK saying, hey, Guido's outside. Guido is the substance dealer. I said, Guido's outside waiting for the 10,000. Can you let Guido in and handle what needs to be handled? As in getting the substances that Diddy wanted, that Guido, it's already been established that Guido was the substance dealer through other witnesses. Hold on, we got some more. And this, stay with me, this isn't it. Also, y'all, if you've been hearing about TriStar is an entity that does business management, okay? It manages money for various different artists. They're the ones who did Britney Spears' estate in her conservatorship, and we're supposed to be managing her money. People have all kinds of concerns about them. Well, there's a woman named Robin Greenhill. That's who does the accounting, all the business management, all the numbers. I think it's separating. Great for Diddy. So Miss Thing is on these text message chains. So Robin, who is supposed to be the accountant, is on a text message chain that says, hey, I need approval. This is from Fahim, the security guard. I need approval for $1,200 for flour. We know what flour is. Flour is cocaine. Flour is cocaine, is a problem.
Chris, I almost choked on my salad.
Guido is waiting to deliver it. Guido, again, is a substance dealer. And then Robin is on the chain. Diddy is on the chain. Fahim and KK. And Diddy says, approved. There's another one. This text string is KK, Diddy, oh girl, Robin. It says, KK is texting Diddy, and Fahim says, well, what do you need? Diddy responds, Molly, 15 pills. You think it's a girl named Molly he's trying to get? It's not no girl named Molly, honey. It's not no girl named Molly. And here's the issue. He's got his business accountant on the text string. He's approving the purchase of substances, which are then going to be used at freak-offs, at parties, at whichever. So the issue, it could be pink flour. Yes, quote unquote, $1,200 for flour, and then later it was Molly, 15 pills. Here's another one. There were multiple. They just kept going and going and going. No, there was also there was an interesting text string that was 2 weeks before Cassie's lawsuit came out, where Jane is texting KK and telling KK, hey, no more hotel nights. I want to celebrate. It was his birthday this coming up. So this was November 2nd. His birthday is November 4th. Jane is saying, no more hotel nights. I want to celebrate Diddy like a normal person. She said it got violent recently and that she didn't want it to be that way. And there was no more hard partying for her. This was her providing evidence that she was trying to get out of the lifestyle. What was interesting with that was that happened in November 2nd of 23. That was before Cassie's lawsuit. But hold on, we're gonna go back. Also 3 days after Cassie's lawsuit, in addition to her sending the message 2 weeks before, Jane says, Diddy sends her a voice note that says, I can't talk on these phones. I called and I reached out and
they don't want to see Rico, Christine.
I thought we both enjoyed what we were doing.
They see it.
Like it literally sounded like
if it was one of their family members, they would see it.
Trying to cover his bottom, and Jane's crying on the phone, and she's like, no, I just can't handle this anymore.
When was the last time one of them
I
bought
went back and forth.
a string?
Also, there's a message where after the Cassie situation came out,
music.
KK sends a message to Diddy that says, if you can't be honest with me,
Now these people
this
mysteriously
won't
died.
work. You are lying, and you're lying to me. This is KK. She said, you're lying to me will break me. KK is his personal assistant. Now, also, there was a message where KK sends to Diddy that says, make sure Robin's not doing anything dumb, like not paying her rent. Make sure Robin's not doing something dumb, like not paying her rent. Yo, that's interesting to me. And that was an exchange between KK and Diddy. Because that makes me wonder, okay, well, did y'all keep paying it after the Cassie situation? Because you didn't want any more legal issues and you knew the government was investigating you? I don't know. I want to get that transcript tonight and reread it again in context. But Jane sent a message the month after Cassie's lawsuit where she specifically says to KK and to Diddy, she says, I was coerced into this dark lifestyle. Robin is the accountant for Combs Global. Okay? Robin, some people are asking,
right now,
Robin? Robin is
they had enough
Global.
lawsuits and complaints, and again, they didn't have a Jonathan Dottie, who was one of his slaves, as he said,
of the text message
that was trying to go to the CIA, FBI. So don't worry about it.
No question about the authenticity is because
they got enough evidence. They got everything they need on him. Maybe they don't have everything they need on other people. But right now, we got Diddy.
That was also where
so that's
Paul,
don't be moving the goalposts. We need to stay right here on Diddy.
Substances and was arrested. Oh, there was this funny little text.
I ain't trying to figure out nothing that ain't happened yet.
Brendan and KK. And Brendan says, oh yeah, I think tonight Diddy's going to be in wild king
Diddy
mode.
need to tell on him.
Yeah. Oh, he said, I think tonight's going to be wild.
His assistant's telling
like
on
king
him.
mode active, like King Nights, or they were asking, is it going to be King mode active or like Gucci bag active? Gucci bag is where he keeps the substances. And so KK had asked that, and then he responded, somewhere in between type of active. In other words, they know, like King Nights is one level of wild. Gucci bag means the substance.
I dare you trying to go to other people, and we still on him. We can't. We having a hard time with him.
There was some evidence that Diddy called Mia 3 times in a day after the lawsuit came out with Cassie, and he wanted to basically kind of get ahead of it. Okay, we don't really care about that. Blah blah blah. Here's what we do care about.
Yeah, I don't care about nobody right now who ain't been brought up on charges. Are you a Diddy ass eater?
A tight-knit college in a city of opportunity. Washburn
people like that to be trying to push other people.
Close,
I don't care nothing about them people right
Small
now.
Small classes and big experiences.
If he want other people to be in trouble with him, he needs to tell on them.
Decorating hotel rooms for
if not, I don't care.
Had flowers and made it look really nice and romantic. That was weird. That was put in by the defense. Okay, but now we're going to conclude, and I want to see your questions about the racketeering
not
evidence.
The only
it's
one.
Racketeering. Thank you for asking. He's charged with racketeering conspiracy. So what has to be shown, remember, is that we know it's an enterprise. It is called Combs Global Enterprises. But what has to be shown is that people from the enterprise, doesn't have to be every employee, but that some of them, hit that like guys, that some of them are working together for a common goal. Fun fact, there is no requirement that the goal be profit. People get that wrong all the time. There does not have to be profit as the goal at all. They only need to show that it's a common goal. And here, the common goals are building up and protecting Diddy's brand.
He ought to. Only person that done came
music mogul
is Kanye. That's the only person he don't need to tell on.
His actual desires.
The person who came to try to show some support. Everybody else is
but literally, it's
on the table.
The indictment. So those two things. So they have to show that he used his employees to sometimes do
everybody who turned their back on me.
Unlawful offenses.
I'm gonna put their asses
in order
on the front
to either
line.
Satisfy his desires or protect his image and his brand. That's it. Well, this evidence, what makes it such a stunner, for the first time, Remember I said prostitution is going to be one of the easiest things to prove? Well, we now have, for the first time, receipts of the prostitution, and they have been stipulated too. So specifically, what that means is that the defense cannot come in and say that's not an accurate receipt. He didn't really buy that flight for Jules Thompson, the hooker.
What you saying, Pressure?
The defense has already agreed that is a valid receipt. It is accurate. So they showed that one of the hookers, Jules Thompson, I believe he took the stand the first week or what have you.
In the AM. So what's
there was
going
a text
on
message
in
string
the AM?
between Diddy or KK and Jules.
A fair judge refused
he was paid.
the
The hooker was paid by the accountant.
I don't understand what you're trying to say.
Tony something. I got her last name here. Tony Bias, financial director for Combs Global. You're paying hookers from your corporate account. Hit that like. Hit that subscribe. Oh yeah, shake that baby. We're gonna shake.
I told y'all that.
Hold on. Let's see if I get my.
He left a whole paper
Hold on.
trail.
It's all the way at the bottom of the bag. Okay. We're going to shake that astroglide, y'all. If you're new to the channel, that's just what I do. I got a little astroglide in my bag. I keep it. We shake it when there has been bombshells in the case. And so, yes. So one of the... So they have a whole text exchange about this hooker, Jules Theodore is his last name, and how Jules specifically, remember, because the charge is transportation for prostitution. So you just have to show that there are two different states involved. Well, these exchanges specifically, not only do they show that in the text, but then the receipt shows it was for a flight from LA to New York or New York to Miami.
Y'all didn't get my lights
from
up.
This city to this city.
I'm finna head out.
So that is where prostitution, Rico style, has been proven. Substance distribution, Rico style, has now been proven. Why? Because you got the doggone accountant of Combs Global, Combs Enterprises, approving and on message chains that says we need approved 15 Molly pills. Hello? Robin is going to, Robin's about to lose her license. Robin is the accountant. Robin is the accountant. It says, so are we saying the government approved all of Diddy's companies?
They've been having all of this stuff the whole time.
Let me put that on the screen. That's a great question. Chuck Love is saying, so are we saying the government proved all of Diddy's companies throughout its full history were just created for drugs and sex trafficking? Absolutely not. Nor is that even a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
You can show that it was created to be a record label, to produce albums, to make music.
And then you started doing other stuff.
So long as he was also conspiring with them to execute crimes, and so long as some, it doesn't even have to be all of them, but execute crimes for a common good. Here the common good was protecting his brand and satisfying his sexual desires. That's what's required. Nope. You could have been a company that did nothing but follow the rules for the last 20 years. If for the last 6 months you guys decide that you want to go pow people and unalive people, then that supports a Rico enterprise.
Absolutely.
So that's how that works, Chuck. Excellent question.
Okay, y'all, I'm gonna go.
Y'all hit that like button. Jesus, how many times is
people shouldn't have to ask y'all to hit the like button.
Thank you.
Y'all don't do cash apps, y'all don't do super stickers, y'all don't do shit. Bye.
Thank you.